Cheers, everybody. It is Monday, April the 15th, right in the middle of the month. This is your Cup of Jones. We're like 2 months away from E3, everybody. I don't know why I just thought of that. I wasn't thinking about E3 at all. And then I just said the date of this episode of Cup, and my brain was like, sounds like E3 is coming. It's like, you're not wrong. E3's coming. Next month, hopefully there'll be some early impressions, possibly, of games coming from myself and the team and Easy Allies, but obviously more information with the Freddy Krueger shirt. Yeah, I guess it is kind of Freddy. I should do the hat. I got the fedora inside. I should just like Freddy versus Jason is on Netflix right now, and I just watched that the other day. Big Freddy Krueger fan. Was sad. The Elm Street movie that they made was not great because I always wanted that. Your taxes are due if you're in the U.S. Blood, keeping it real in chat. Got to get those taxes done, everybody, if you don't have it done already. It was kind of fun having the power to deliver the taxes to the rest of the allies. Obviously, it's a horrible thing to say, but like, the allies would reach out to me and be like, "Hey, when do we get our taxes?" We specifically Bloodworth and Damiani are like on top of that. They're like, we need to get those taxes done. I'm like, oh, you want these taxes? What's up, everybody? It's Cup of Jones. Lots of business to talk about today. Last episode, we had a deluge of personal questions. But let's get the intro stuff out of the way. Let's talk about the most important thing right now, the thing we're all thinking about. We woke up this morning, and even all of you, of course, that aren't getting caught up immediately thought of, Winterfell and King's Landing and, the Night's Watch and the White Walkers and just everything that's going on right now. Amanda had a show last night, so we actually didn't see it when it aired, because usually see it 6 p.m. Pacific time, because that's when it airs in the East Coast, and so that's when HBO gets it. Amanda had a show last night, so she did Star Trek Improv, and then we came back and like, okay, stayed up a little later than we normally did, and I'm gonna jump to this little tidbit because it's another reason I was up a little bit late last night. I am reviewing Days Gone. I have the game. It was crazy. I saw people tweeting about it, and I was like, what? Why is everybody tweeting about Days Gone, man? We can't say we got the game. And then I checked the email. I'm like, oh, I can totally say that. So, yeah, I got Days Gone. I'm going to be playing Days Gone. Obviously, our review is going to go up much closer to the game actually coming out. But playing that. I'm going to play that right after this Cup of Jones. Immediately after this Cup of Jones. Going to jump right back in. Brum, brum, brum. Drive around. Shoot some zombies in the face with a shotgun on a motorcycle. Yeah. And that's all I can say about that. But going back to Game of Thrones, there will be Easy Allies Game of Thrones related content. One of those is already on our YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, I sat all of the allies down, except for like a handful, like Dawn or some of the people that were like, nah, I'm okay. But even Kyle, who has not watched a minute of the television show, and we all put down our predictions. Of course, there's like a million things I was thinking of last night when I was watching it. I was like, oh, damn it, there's that character I didn't even think of. I wrote just like almost from memory, I wrote a list of names down because none of the guys did any research leading up to it. And like Huber's like criticizing my list in the video. He's like, what? Where's Juck and Hagar? And it's like, sorry, dude. Sorry I had the idea and sat you down and wrote you down a list, and that, you didn't do your homework. I can even say when the review goes up. Oh, cool. If I hit it, the blood shade. You can even say when the review goes up if you hit it. I got like 14 days, man, and he's the shade. Actually, I don't have 14 days. I have 10. I have 10 days left. I'm a pretty good ways, I believe, through the game. But yeah, it is the 25th. It comes out on the 26th. It is the 25th, I believe. I don't know the time. Maybe in the morning. I don't know. I have so much time that I was like, I have more time with Days Gone than I had with Horizon Zero Dawn and Spider-Man. So it's really great. The time that I have. I'm not saying anything about the quality of the game. The time that I have is wonderful. So is that if you hit it, if I hit the embargo, or wait, I'm assuming you mean the embargo blood. So there's the question, there's the uncertainty. I mean, maybe you'll hit that embargo, maybe you won't. We'll see, Jones. It's not the shade. It's not shade so much as a challenge. It's a blood challenge. I'm making a blood pact with you right now that I will hit that embargo, ladies and gentlemen. So on April 25th, tune in. Find out what Easy Allies thinks of Days Gone. But there's that prediction video for Game of Thrones, and we will be doing a spoiler mode, of course, at the end. Very excited to sit down with like a ton of allies. It's going to be a very packed table and talk about all the crazy stuff that's happening. It's only 6 episodes, so that'll be in 6 weeks. But can we do Cup of Jones next week in Dreams? No, Anton. I don't know if maybe I don't know. I'm I'm going to be playing that soon. We'll figure out how that goes. Let's jump to that. We're kind of bouncing all over the place in my intro, but Dreams comes out tomorrow. Early access begins at 8:30 a.m. We might get early access here, early access. We don't know. I haven't got anything officially from Sony yet in terms of like, all right, go. But no matter what, I'm going to wait until tomorrow morning at 8:30 to play it for the first time ever, outside of obviously demos and stuff like that, but like was not involved in the beta at all. Tomorrow, bright and early, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/EasyAllies. Actually, the first time I've streamed on Twitch, I believe, from the garage since we moved to the studio. I've only been doing these Cup of Joneses. Thank you. Oh, and I was on Reaction Shots last week as well. Thank you for reminding me, Flo. We did adaptations, and I talked about Game of Thrones a lot. It was kind of confusing for me, not only because it's not my show, but it was also like, how much do we talk about adaptations and how much do we talk about Game of Thrones? And I was... I had a list of things, and I was like, "Man, is this going to cover 2 hours? I don't know." And it's like it's Huber and I. Huber and I could talk for a very, very long time. But yeah, so Game of Thrones is exciting. Enjoy the show. Only 5 episodes left, and then we're done with the whole darn thing. And then we'll sit down for spoiler mode after. If you want to check out predictions, they're on youtube.com/EasyAllies. Lots of fun things going up on our YouTube channel. A shout out to Ian Hank, who cut the Falcon Age review in 2.5 hours. I don't know how he does that. Ian is just the fastest review cutter in the West. If Ian and I had reviews and we were staring each other down an alley, I'd put my hands up. I'd be like, I surrender. He's just too quick. A quick draw review cutter. Yeah, 2 reviews in the middle of the night. Blood was all over that stuff. And then, of course, that was Bloodworth's review for Falcon Age, and Ben Moore did a review for Earth Defense Force Iron Rain, cut by Mr. Don Casanova. The two of them stepping in wonderfully because I was actually very much not playing Days Gone while they were cutting that, but have been focused very much on Days Gone for the last couple days. So the last couple days are gone, and they were all spent driving around on motorcycle. Ben also has some very exciting news that he shared on Frametrap, but Ben has been working hard to get Maximilian as a guest on Frametrap. If you're not familiar with Maximilian, he is someone that we very much admire and want to emulate in many ways here at Easy Allies, a very prolific fighting game journalist. Makes lots of fun videos, has a very fun channel, does lots of great reactions. I think that's when we most look at Maximilian's stuff, is like how he does reactions, how he packages them, how he advertises them on social media. And it's the nervous thing about, it's when I had a guest show is the really nervous thing. I think I only had one guest the whole time I did GT Live that backed out on me at the last minute. Everybody else, which is nervous because it wasn't only just doing Skype or online, but it was like in person. That person had to drive, I had to pay for their parking, and they had to, like come in and sit down and explain the show to them. So the fact that he's willing to come by the studio, sit down, and be on Frametrap is great, but you never know what'll happen. Hopefully that actually does work out, but that'll be in an upcoming episode. I believe the next episode of Frametrap will star Maximilian, and we're very, very stoked about that. So kudos to Ben for putting that together. And yeah, I mentioned streaming Dreams tomorrow, and we're also streaming Dreams. It's gonna be Dream Streams. We're streaming Dreams tomorrow night for the group stream, and initially, we were thinking, because obviously a Don's Design Lab would be in order, for a game like that, a Jones's Design Lab or something. I would love to judge one of those competitions. And it was like, well, it's just coming out. Even I am going to be completely, overwhelmed tomorrow, going into Dreams for the first time and being like, how does this work? Because I think there's like, specifically, like if you imagine in 3D space, the buttons that you need to press to make objects move up and down, just committing that to memory. It's like the grenade button in a new first-person shooter. You're like, what? It's the thumbstick. What? Like takes you a while to get from what is that button again to the next stage, which is, oh, right, it's that button, to the next stage, which is, I'm just pressing it now. I'm manipulating stuff in 3D space. I'm not even thinking about it. Whenever I think about editing and the skills required for editing, I always think about the sushi chefs at Benihana. If you've ever been to, and not necessarily just Benihana, but like any, restaurant where they prepare the food in front of you and they just line up the shrimp, and there's like a little specific thing that they do with like every piece of shrimp. And that was my favorite as a kid. When I would go, I would just be like, wait, they're going to do the shrimp. Hold on. And then he would like miss one. He'd be like, oh, I forgot that tail. And I'm like, oh, your batting average with those shrimp is not 100. Or what would a batting average be? Would it be 100 if it was perfect? Would it be 10? I don't know. And Mysterious Monsters, episode 3. Technically, there's only really been one studio episode, but we also did it live. The third time you will be seeing the final product of Mysterious Monsters today, 2 p.m. It is going to be on both, correct me if I'm wrong, Bloodworth is going to be on both twitch.tv/EasyAllies and YouTube. Both of them are going to be premiering if you would like to check those out. It would be 1,000. There we go. Thank you, everybody. Bradley Speed specifically with a decimal point in the right place. Austin also dropped it. Appreciate it. Don't watch nearly as much baseball as Michael Huber, otherwise I would be on top of it. Move controllers might be easier for Dreams. Yes, I'm actually going to. It's a good thing I have blood on. I'm in 100% move controllers, I think, most of the time for Dreams. I love Megan in there prepped for Dreams tomorrow. Blood currently has our move controllers. So actually, I lied. Right after this Cup of Jones, I'm not going to play Days Gone. I'm going to run to Best Buy and see. They said they could deliver. Amazon said they could deliver move controllers by Monday. I thought about this on Friday and was like, oh wait, I'm gonna need move controllers. And Blood's reviewing Falcon Age. And so I was gonna order one, and they were like, yeah, it'll get there Monday. And I'm like, I don't trust you. So I'm gonna run out and see if I can do that. But if not, I might have to track Bloodworth down and grab those move controllers back because the Falcon Age review is done. I don't know what to say. Blood, is there anything else? You playing Beat Saber? Or is there anything else? You can play Invisible Hours or something? Is there anything else you need those move controllers for? We'll see. Talk about back alleys. Meet Bloodworth in a back alley. You got the move. Give me the move. There we go. Yeah, so lots of fun stuff going on. Also, shout out to all of your friends, potential Easy Allies sponsors. We are currently down a mega sponsor. We are currently down 1 or 2 Easy Ally podcast sponsors for the month of May. And I believe they're Frame Trap openings as well. And these are not only obviously sponsors of our 2 most popular podcasts, but they are the top of our Patreon. I mean, everyone is in a different spot when you mix up everybody that's involved in our Patreon, but specifically when we lose a $250, $500, or $700 Patreon slot, then the numbers drop quite significantly. And even if we're just above 50,000, just dropping below 50,000, it's like, oh, it is the exclamation, the Metal Gear exclamation point goes off above my head, and it's like, oh, okay, time to spread the word. Blood was going to try out some other VR stuff, but for sure nothing important. Okay, we'll see. And then I will return those right away. Maybe I'll buy them. We should probably have 2 extra move controllers anyway. Should have some move controllers that just live in the studio whenever somebody wants to move. Yeah, we have sponsorship slots open, all of that stuff. So if you know somebody that was interested, if you yourself is interested and we're thinking about possibly upping your pledge, we would greatly appreciate it. Obviously, we are locked into the studio. If we hit $49,999, we're not going to be packing up our bags. But I think it is important for us to create more of a clear vision of what's happening with the future of EZA. Again, we've just been very event focused and a lot of quality of life focused in terms of the studio. Even with all the furniture additions that I showed you recently, now we're just thinking of more stuff that we need. A lot more specifically technical stuff that, there's only $200 here, $300 there, but it does add up. And we just wrote paychecks for April. And so it's probably might not be something until other revenue streams come, those paychecks come in for April or possibly May's budget. But then we're talking about getting ready for E3. It's interesting. We have a question coming up where somebody asks about the typical Easy Allies day. And it's like, there's no such thing as the typical Easy Allies day, week, month, year, no matter what. It's just always, wrapping up something, getting ready for something else, and then looking at that other thing that's happening 2 months from now. Yeah, if you can't sponsor us, great. If not, maybe just spread the word. Let your friends and family know that it's time for people to jump in. And thank you to Riverhorse. It was our mega sponsor for 2 whole months. All right. Business questions. I watch Icon Master. I watch your Graphtreon progress a bit obsessively. I love watching stuff like that. I love tracking stuff like that. I admittedly don't do it as much as I used to back in the very early game trailers days, but I would just sit and stare at those numbers. And I noticed a couple of things. EZA crossed 9,000 patrons in February. That's great. It's safer to have a large number of small pledges than a small number of large pledges. Yes, correct. But the monthly earnings seem to have plateaued since June 2018. I know you're not in any danger, but do you foresee wanting to make another push for new patrons? Definitely. That is something that if it does not happen before E3, and considering the planning that we have to do before E3, it might not, and we have just one or two other event ideas that we'd like to make happen. We would like to, I say. They're not scheduled, but that is definitely something that needs to happen this summer. That is something that needs to happen in the immediate future. And I think that's like a twofold strategy. One being some kind of live event. We have fun event ideas, fun like marathon ideas. Easy Living is coming up. We can maybe wrap Easy Living around the idea of bringing in new patrons. But some kind of event in the idea of reminding people, in the industry, people that might just be stopping by only to watch our reviews or only stopping for streams every now and then that here's changes that we've made to our Patreon. Here's our next goal. We moved in the studio. Look at the studio. Studio is nice, but there's other things that we would like to do. Other goals we'd like to hit. Shows we'd like to produce. Dreams we would like to meet. And then I think along with that is a more concrete, clear vision of what the future of company looks like. More goals added to the Patreon. A more of a discussion. It was interesting to see Mysterious Monsters go through the gestation phase of being a concept and then a pitch, and then that pitch just like being most of the show, and then boom, it's a show. Where we need to, I think, do a better job, and I think it's why you've seen this plateau. Is why our numbers at the top have been roller coastering a little bit. Is we don't have as clear of a vision for the future of Easy Allies as we did before we moved into the studio. And the studio is just a process for so many reasons, a process for what does it mean for the company, a process for what does this mean for our budget, a process for what does this mean for everybody's schedule and other fun things that we want to do. Really neat to see, if you haven't tuned into it, the first episode of It's Easy to Like Anime, which is Michael Damiani and Ben Moore's new show where they sit down and discuss each episode of season 2 of One Punch Man, and that premiered last week, and they're going to be doing another one this Tuesday, and then after every episode. So it's ideas like that again aren't necessarily as fun as that is, and as much as I enjoy that being produced, and as much as I hope you enjoy watching it, I don't think that's like, this is what idea that we had for the studio. This is like, okay, now that we're in here, now that we know what our schedule is, now that we know what everybody's going to be working on, let's try things out. And so there's not only that, but if you missed the post, Bossman is gathering ideas for, and I believe he put up the list of the games that are in there on Slack as we were all checking who had stuff on Switch. But we are going to be gathering to shoot a collection of Switch achievements. So games that require achievements. Games that need achievements on the Nintendo Switch but do not have them. We will gather together. I might not be a part of that shoot because I was involved in the last 2 exclusive shows, and I want to open up spaces for other allies to be involved. So you may or may not see me in Switch Achievements video, but that'll be a gang of us trying to accomplish some very weird ideas from our community. So thank you very much for your involvement. Same kind of thing, though, is the first exclusive show that we've done since we moved into the studio. We have a lot of other ideas for exclusive shows, and it's just a question. Not only, again, this is something that can represent what we want to do in the studio, but all of these things are obviously trial runs for stuff that we haven't done E3 yet in the studio. Obviously, that is going to be very exciting, and I think definitely our best E3 coverage to date. But still, lots of experimentation, and we talk about that coming up. So. Thank you, Icon Master, for checking in, and thank you for keeping an eye on our Graphtreon. Let us know if anything changes. Why win? Have you ever thought about doing an independent documentary on the path from game trailers to a fan-base-funded operation in your garage to getting a studio? You have all the talent to film and edit. Well, thank you, YWin. This can be done on the side. No need to hurry. You can set up a GoFundMe page. I'd invest $100 just to hear the full story and help you out. It would also be good promotion material to try and put it on Netflix. Why not? I have seen some really obscure documentaries on Netflix. So have I, which I've been known to watch. So why not? Why not? Why not? Why not? Let's pitch everything to Netflix. Believe it or not, that would not be the first time someone in Easy Allies has pitched something to Netflix. Yeah, it's a tough thing to do. You pitch it to YouTube Red or YouTube Plus or YouTube Prime or YouTube, I don't know, the awesome part of YouTube, whatever they call it. I've also had people be like, write a book. It's interesting because it's creating Easyologies has been a very humbling experience, and I think that's part of the keeping ourselves sane and focused, centered as we move forward, is to not let us get obsessed with ego and to not let us think that we're so great that we don't need to change things. There's always this fine balance between I'm doing enough work and I'm not doing enough. We are pleasing our fan base, but at the same time, like I said, I think you all deserve to have a clearer vision over like what's going to happen with the future of this company. I think I think the alarm bells will really start to sound in my brain when there's like nothing left to tell you about the studio. There's a lot we have yet to do with that studio, and I think that should deserves our full attention in terms of like fixing the lights and getting more tech stuff. Getting the two studios to talk to each other. We need new tripods for the cameras that are in the main studio. But there was like a different tripod for like every single camera in there because we just kind of did a rough organizing when we moved in, and you look at things and it's not just like, oh, we've bought everything now. It's like, well, we have tripods. We could use new tripods. Like we have microphones. We could use new microphones. We have we have a couple desks, I guess, in the, office, but we could use maybe another new desk. So it's tricky to figure out like what to focus on. And when you talk about making like a documentary about yourself, that seems like the most time-wasting, self-serving. You make a good point that it would be fun promotional material. And I actually really appreciate, if you haven't seen it, shout out to Rooster Teeth and Kind of Funny, and specifically Nick Scarpino, who recently has been doing something that terrifies me almost as much as the idea of being lost at sea in an ocean of dark water. And that is doing stand-up. I don't remember the name of the documentary, but they... like Standing Up or something, I don't know, but it chronicled Nick Scarpino's rise as a somewhat known new comic, and just how scary that is, and his journey on that, along with a lot of other people at Rooster Teeth that were like, sure, why not, let's do it. Even Maximum Cortez got up and did a stand-up routine. But it's fun to see time given to focus on those things. Not necessarily for us being like, look how great we are, but just fun information, fun behind the scenes perspective that you don't get a lot of the time. I can't say that we would have time for something like that. Maybe one day I'll write a book about game trailers. Yeah, I don't. Honestly, that's not a conversation I think that's come up a lot, but I would be very surprised if anybody, maybe Don, would be like, that sounds like fun. We're like, okay, Don, you can go follow us around the camera and you can shoot that. But I've never really done like a documentary. Documentaries would be fun. Again, shout out to NoClip. Like, I really appreciate the work that they've been doing over there. And documentaries are cool. It's just, I think a lot of documentarians are really trying to make a difference and to change things directly with their art. And I get so intimidated about producing stuff like that to actually represent something well. That would be very scary in a documentary. It's more fun to just do podcasts. David Lefrank. High-end production content like reviews and Game Sleuth may draw in more viewers if they go viral, but are much more difficult to produce compared to streams and podcasts made for the current audience. Do you see things moving toward one end of the scale, or is there an okay balance? Is the real solution to lean into popular content that is relatively easier to produce, like announcements or conference reactions? Where does Mysterious Monsters fit into the scale? Mysterious Monsters is definitely produced not in the traditional, I guess, gaming YouTube way. Hopefully a game show is unique somewhat, even among, some of our bigger competitors and colleagues. But it's different in a completely different way. Like, all that stuff is improv. There's not a lot of scripted work done for Huber specifically. And obviously the contestants don't know the questions going into those things. But logistically, it's unlike anything we've ever produced, even at Game Trailers, even like anywhere else. Like, none of us have really done a game show before. And so we're all kind of learning. Specifically, Ian and Jason are learning a lot about one of the craziest things that I don't think people think of a lot is getting questions, trying to figure out how, what's the point value of the difficulty of a question and why. I mean, obviously that changes. We had Jessica Lynn Verdi on and she was like, I don't know who Reggie Fils-Aimé is. And it was like, that's understandable, to the rest of us, probably to a lot of people that are watching this game show, they know, but, just for the average person, a friend of ours, celebrity, to come on the guest, to come on a game show and be like, I have no idea what's going on. What are all these crazy questions? Nintendo 3DS, what's that? But it definitely is on high-end production content because it utilizes many, many other aspects of the stage that none of our shows, other shows really do, costumes and sets and special effects and literally a game running in the background. But it is definitely more on high-end production content. And that high-end production content is really great. But I think right now it is pretty equally balanced in terms of us trying to, and not only that, but all of the shows that we're doing are podcasts. And I think our podcasts require a little more, obviously reactions don't require anything. Like we show up for reactions and turn all the lights and the PC on and then sit down and watch a thing. And so that's like probably the easiest thing that we do. The ratio of easiness to, highest performance, that probably has the most satisfying payoff. But podcasts are also just us hanging around talking, but obviously Ben and does a lot of work on Frame Trap and Tabletop Escapades, Tabletop Escapades, Frame Trap. And Bossman does a lot of work on the Easy Allies podcast, possibly a lot more than you think. It seems like a lot of those bits that he comes up with for the podcast are just kind of like off the top of his head and fun last minute things. But I should take a picture of it, but you should definitely see something that I see a lot, which is just Kyle like on his laptop, like reading the news, scrolling through a lot of information on the internets. So I think, when you have podcasts in the middle there, you have reactions that are easiest thing that we do. And then you have, retrospectives and reviews and special features and exclusive shows. And I think down the road, if I was to maybe, gaze into the future, look into the fires and see what Easy Allies might look like in 5 or so years, I think there's much more live stuff happening than special features like that. Just in terms of, again, playing to our strengths, being smart with our sponsored money. It's like we get a fair amount of money through Patreon and our other channels. We get a lot of your money. We have your money for the month of April, and we are extremely grateful, for using that to produce what we do here at Easy Allies. And is that, how much bang for your buck should we get? And should we put all that money into a special feature that you might not be interested in, that not a lot of people might not check out because it's not specifically interesting to them? We definitely have some like franchise / genre specific features coming up. And if you're not into that thing, you're probably not gonna be interested in that video, or there's the risk that you won't. And so I think, and also because when we were producing these special features, we're playing a game that YouTube has been playing for a long time, that I at one time I was ahead of way back in 2002, really 2005, when we were producing content for our own website. YouTube is only a year old. We were very unique on the internet at Game Trailers, whereas now, making videos about what we think about video games is not at all unique on YouTube, where I think live feels like it did, back in the day, back in the turn of the century. And so it's exciting to have ideas about live, have ideas about fun things that we can do, that are not only community can be engaged in, but involved in a much more interesting way than just leaving comments on a YouTube video. So that's my rough predictions. That's not we're not budgeting for that. That's just kind of where I see the trend going. I think we're pretty mixed right now, though, but we'll see in the future. Alex Pisa. Would you ever consider having another ally on this Cup of Jones and for them to answer their own personal questions? Sure. I will let you know, I think there's at least 2 occasions since we started Easy Allies at a big meeting where I have said, hey, do we want to do like a Cup of Bossman? And like all the allies were like, no. Meaning, do each of you just want to stream from home and take over Cup of Jones and answer questions and talk about, yourself? And they were like, no, fine. All the allies are doing pretty good with all the stuff that they have. But I did think of doing, and I actually had this idea 2 or 3 months before Huber did it on Huber Syndrome. And that was to have one episode each week be focused on a specific ally. I'll tell a story about how I met them. I'll have them on and we can talk about stuff. And again, just the allies live all over the place. And I think that would be asking a lot to have somebody come down and just spend 2 hours with me. And especially when it's not something like the community showcase, it's not in the byline. It's not a part of their job description. It would just be a bonus for the sake of making a couple people happy and a couple very important people, everyone who tunes in live or watches Cup of Jones on patreon.com/Easy Allies. But yeah, not something I would necessarily demand. Maybe we can do it via Skype. I don't know. Even that, this show is relatively early in the morning. I guess not that early, but it is in the AM. And maybe like on a Monday morning, most of the allies. I don't know what the allies are doing. I know what Bloodworth is doing right now. All the other allies, no idea. Mike Hook 1. Were any of the thoughts about a solo bonus round for the... Were there any thoughts about a solo bonus round for the winner of Mysterious Monsters, similar to Wheel of Fortune, where the winner can obtain additional prizes or glory? That's fun. That's a fun way possibly that the show can evolve. I know that every single time that we've shot an episode of Mysterious Monsters, immediately after, Jason and Ian are like, duh, we got to make that change, or we got to add that. And we have another suggestion coming down the line in this episode of Cup of Jones. It's literally just money. It's money and time. It's like, that's a great idea. I would love to have that. It's not. We're not doing that because we don't like that idea. It's just we haven't spent that much money on Mysterious Monsters yet. But in additionally, that means that's more trivia questions. It would make the episodes longer. It would make the shoots longer. So if there was a bonus round, even if it was like 5 to 10 minutes, and we're shooting 3 of these episodes back to back, it's like, is that the smartest idea? But is one of many ways possibly that show can evolve. So I will throw that at the show creators, see what they think. Brandon K. Gann, but no, that idea had not come up before, as is my yearly tradition, and I'll make mention of it in the coming community showcase. I'm beginning to try to find time to go back and rewatch as much as I can from the prior E3, but before doing so, I'm curious. Do you or anyone else at EZA revisit past content? Hell yeah. Or just given an event's media to prepare for an upcoming event? I understand if not because of the time commitment, but personally, it's fun to go back and see what an ally has said, in addition to also being a good tool to see what worked and what could be improved. Yeah, totally. At least I can speak for myself. I do this all the time. I'll even do this. I like to go back and watch some of my old reviews just to kind of get a sense of like where my editorial voice is. Like what games have I reviewing recently, and how can I improve upon that? Not at all related to the question that you just asked, but specifically around events. Yeah, because a lot of times it's interesting going into podcasts and like the first State of Play, it was interesting to go back and like watch PSX and be like, when was the last time Sony updated us on stuff? Like, when was the last time they talked about these things? But I think most specifically, Easy Living gets a rewatch from me, not the entire thing. And a lot of these things, when I rewatch them, I don't watch the entire thing. I just kind of check in and see like what it looked like, what it sounded like, how we opened it. Definitely did that last year with not like the entirety of our E3 coverage, but like leading into our E3 coverage. I was like, how can I cut a little video leading into E3? I was like, how can we make this special in terms of, we had a fundraiser right before E3 where we got a bunch of new equipment. And so I wanted to make sure that we were, remembering as many things, because we do take notes. We do a postmortem a lot of times after events. And so Bloodworth, the consummate note taker, will organize a lot of our ideas and things that we know in the moment, right when we're done with things. Okay, obviously we were talking about the concert, doing something very different for our 4th year anniversary. And but we do this all the time. Again, I don't sit and like, I don't even watch it at fast motion. I just kind of click through it just to get a sense of like, yes, that's right. That's what we did before. But will I be watching like conventions before? Like Bethesda's press conference last year is still pretty fresh in my mind. So I don't know if I will watch other people's coverage of E3, but I will probably check out our stuff, considering also because this is going to be a whole new bag in the studio for E3 coverage this year. Varun Kachwaha. I read a post asking what the benefits of the studio have been content-wise. Many people are thinking the studio is being used exactly like your garage, a congregation point just to make some content, and that's it. The content has been the same. Streams have not been from the studio, utilizing the better equipment there. A lot of people don't even like the new aesthetics of the studio. I mean, yeah, nothing you can do about that. People were also thinking that the studio would allow more collaboration. I saw some comments thrown around that they expected the allies to come into the studio every day so that things wouldn't have to be rushed. Apparently, the podcast, group stream, Huber Syndrome, reaction shots, and the anime show were filmed in one day, and there was a noticeable reduction in quality as a result from that. The question marks are because I missed most of these, so I can't attest to these claims. Basically, there isn't enough leadership, the quality of the shows are too varied, and a lot of people thought that The Office would be like the Game Trailers 2.0 with allies in the office every day with frequent collaboration. But it seems like your Garage 2.0. Same thing, different view. I don't share these same views, but I've seen these frustrations quite a bit, especially around the studio, and thought you addressing some of these would help ease tensions a little. I'm sorry if there's tensions. If you're watching this and you're in this camp, if this information gets to you and this is a concern of yours, I'm sorry that you're frustrated. Understand that no, it's not going to be Game Trailers 2.0. I struggle with the idea that it would be like Game Trailers at all. You have to understand these are two completely different enterprises. And you might be like, what? That doesn't make any sense. These are different companies owned by different people with different employees in a different location producing a different lineup of shows. Like it could not be more drastically separate from what we did before. I think in no way more than the fact that we own everything now. Like So what you're seeing is not us being like, well, I guess the channels just have to gonna be run this way. Like, this is the way that we want things to be run. This is how much time each of us individually wants to be in the studio. These are the shows we want to be doing. This is how we want to be doing those shows. And if we are to make changes, it's not going to be because of people's perception of what we should be doing in terms of how we should be utilizing the show. If we move into the studio and are still producing the same content that we did before and adding stuff, hard for me to be frustrated with myself for not meeting somebody's expectations of what they thought that studio would be, especially considering, like, wait a minute, that time that you were owned by a media channel and had tech people that would solve problems for you by you snapping your fingers, and had, you know, Smosh TV and Clever and all these people, like all these people nearby you, and now it's just, you know, 9 of you in a place that you're renting yourself. Like, it's not the same thing. Like, it's very much not the same thing. It's a completely different company. And so I think that's it when you're like, oh, they expected you to be there every day. We were at Defy every day because it was our job that we were being paid a specific salary by a giant media company to do. So there were times the allies didn't want to come in. There were some times that they didn't, and I was like, that's okay. Like, if they were working, you know, if they got a review and it was like 2 days before the embargo and somebody was like, I think I can hit this, I'm not going to be around. I'd be like, okay, cool. We're all also going to show up to this office every single day, because we don't have the benefit of streaming from home. There's not a lot of stuff that we can't really split those things because I might need you for meetings. There might be a Defy Media or Viacom wide company meeting that all of us need to attend. There were other just straight business giant, you know, corporation events that we needed to be at that we don't have to worry about anymore. And again, that might translate into, you know, the fact that we do Frame Trap now, which we didn't at Game Trailers, or one more review, but it's not something that you're going to notice. That's the extra review. Like, we don't label things as such. And so just the fact that we're doing the same types of content that we did before doesn't necessarily, you know, I think to look deeper into the topic, you have to figure out like how many of those videos were we doing before. Yeah, people are streaming from home, but we're doing way more streams than we did at Game Trailers. I think we did like a stream a week, maybe like 2. And, you know, so the benefit of like Ben Moore being able to jump on it and play games from home, I don't know why it would be important to our community for Ben to get in a car and spend 3 hours of his day in a car. It's the reality. Like, Ben would just sit in the car for 3 hours, you know, like at least, and then show up to the studio and then be like, okay. And then now he's a little bit tired. I know that, like, if these are the same people that are complaining that we shot all those things in a day, and yet they're like, but we would also like to add a commute to your schedule more. So we want you tired from the commute, but not tired from shooting too many shows. But, you know, so the whole idea around the studio is like, we don't need to have a meeting in the studio. We don't need to do countdown deliberations in the studio. We don't need, you know, to do the Q&A in the studio. There's just a lot of things that we would be putting a considerable amount of work. We would be taking hours out of our production schedule to work on other things to make something maybe look slightly better, or to have like more collaboration, you know, as you're saying. But that is frustrating to hear about the collaboration thing, because I've actually been really excited about, you know, obviously we have, you know, guests coming in on things. We've had a lot of guest people that are coming in to collaborate on Mysterious Monsters. We have, there's been the full playthrough Friday or Fun Day that we did of Uncharted. Ben and Brad and myself all popped in on that stream because we were shooting Frame Trap at the same time. There have been additional things that we've shot. Granted, we're not doing like, you know, wrestling parodies and stuff, but like I have seen a lot of that, and I actually am happy with the allies that they've been producing those things, because it's fun to do those. But at the same time, there's one thing that you touched on is you're like, apparently the podcast, group stream, Huber Syndrome, reaction shots, and the anime show were all filmed in one day. That is Tuesday. Our Tuesday is our biggest day, and at the very least, we are going to shoot the Easy Allies podcast, the group stream, and most likely something after the group stream, and most likely something before the podcast. Case in point, not this Tuesday, but I believe next week is going to be Trailer Jones that we were shooting before, and then we already have the Avengers Endgame spoiler mode already in the calendar for the following Tuesday night, the last Tuesday of the month, the second to last Tuesday, I believe, whatever Tuesday like follows, you know, that release that weekend. And it just, again, it makes sense. And I know it might be like, God, you're so tired and your coverage is taking a hit. And it's like, well, if we postpone that to the next day, then now the person who's working on a review, now the person who's working on their own show or preparing for a shoot maybe the day after that, now has this shoot in the middle of their day that they have to drive to, plan for, drive back from, and possibly get other allies involved when who knows what their schedules are going to be. Not because we're spending all of our time doing other random things, but like when we were at Defy Media or when we were at Viacom, it would be tougher to like set a dentist appointment for 3 p.m. And like now we can do that. You know, like now I can meet with Sean, my trainer, at noon on Wednesdays and Fridays. And it's great. But sometimes I have to change that because I might be involved with the show. And so it's not a matter, again, of us just like, oh, we have so much free time. But like we do have more freedom in how we set up our schedules. And so what's happened over time in the span of 3 years is us just realizing, okay, the iron is hot. Let's strike it. Like, okay, we're all here. Let's do it. Let's do that thing, as opposed to waiting another time and then having everybody congregate when they could be spending that time working on other things. So it's interesting. I think there is like what's tricky about a lot of the criticisms that I hear like telephone from other people, that they're just like, I don't know if you were at this one website at this one time when this one thing was being discussed. And it's like, I didn't, so I'll have to hear that through another person, because then I don't get the specific voice of those people that are saying it. And it's interesting sometimes what seems to be contradictory statements, from people who are like, man, you look tired. You shouldn't be so tired in their reviews, but you should be in the studio more often, so you should drive more. And you're like, but we'd be tired for driving and getting less sleep because we got to get up in the morning to go do reactions. If we do reactions from home, I did the reactions from home for the Red Dead trailers when those happened, and somebody's like, oh, I expected you to do that in the studio. It's like, well, again, you just added 2 hours to my schedule for what? Like, what's the value beyond just like you have the studio, use it? I still think that we could streamline a lot of our home stuff more. I think a lot of times when the allies stream from home, like all of their mortises look different, and they're using different logos and sometimes outdated graphics. And so I would like to see, I kind of am delaying that or not really focusing on that so much, because I think that makes sense to tie into kind of a more across the board graphical upgrade to the way Easy Allies looks for a lot of our shows. Yeah. And the other thing why I'm not beating myself up too much about this is I have seen this change and grow and evolve. Blood comments, we've definitely gotten a lot more efficient from working from home. And for instance, there isn't an office full of PCs for people to write, edit, etc. Right. I feel good about this because I think as time has gone on, you've seen more of us doing stuff in the studio. You've seen more creativity in terms of like how we're producing content and the type of live streams that we've been doing. Again, we on Tuesday nights, now Ben Moore and Michael Damiani sit down and stream reactions to an anime show, brand new show that we've been doing, not a part of our Patreon, something that we naturally fit into our schedule because Ben and Damiani are like, we're going to be here. We're both going to be in the studio at this time. The episode premieres the day before. Let's just do it. We'll sit down and we'll talk about that. And we'll add that to the schedule. Is that another thing they have to do? Yes. Is there the possibility that Damiani is going to do Friend Code and then Trailer Jones and then the podcast and then the group stream and then Huber Syndrome and then that? Yes. Would it be great to have all the allies in there all day, every day? If I wanted to crack the whip and make this a job they didn't enjoy, sure. And I think a lot of people are in that situation when they are producing stuff in an office. They're like, they get up in the morning, oh, I don't feel like doing it. And I take a role of like, I'm your boss. I will fire you if you don't do this. You will not have a job if you don't come into the office today. Like, I don't know about you, but I felt kind of icky when I said that. Like, it's just not the company. It's not the way this company needs to be structured. And it's certainly not the way we've built it in terms of looking at the type of shows that we had to do, looking at our production schedule and being like, what if we did it this way? Oh, it works. Okay, well, that happened, and so we'll fix that. And then, okay, now it works now. Now we're really comfortable. It was interesting last week because I had a lot of these. I'm very much closer to the studio, I think, than any of the allies, but I was in the studio like every day last week. So even with it being very close to me and not having like a massive commute, it still kind of messed up my schedule a little bit. Amanda was out of town and I shot like a thing there on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. And so I would get up and then be like, okay, what am I gonna do for work today? Oh, wait, I only have a short amount of time to get this work done. And then I got to get into the studio and do that thing. And so it is it pays, and I think behooves us and makes us at the end of the day more productive if we kind of package, these shoots and realize, well, as long as everybody's going to be here. That's kind of how stuff happened before at Defy Media and at Viacom, because it was like, oh, you're here, you're not working on something right now, you're not on a stream, you're not helping with an edit, you're right here. Let me grab you and go shoot this thing. And so when stuff is stacked, it's the same. It's the thing that you're telling us to do more of, but you're also saying is making our content not as good. And keep in mind, there's also people going out of town. There's events that come up for personal reasons or other business reasons outside of Easy Allies. People might have to be involved in something. And the other thing, Blood says, I think a misconception is that not coming in means we're not working, but we are all constantly working too much, and we are in the studio more than people realize. This is true. I had a really fascinating moment the other day that made me really happy. I came in and it reminded me of Terminator 2, because there's a line where he's like, you just can't leave your desk, man. And I came in and the door was open and the light was on for the green room. And I'm like, who left the door open and the light on when they left? I was like, oh, well. Then I went around to get something, and then I walked back to the office, and there's Don Casanova just working, just cutting away. I was like, what's up, Don? And he's like, hey, and we sat down and talked about trials and dreams and design lab and maybe fun ideas we could have in the future towards competitions and tournaments for designing content, and had like an hour-long meeting, and it's like, didn't shoot it. I didn't really think to bring it up. And I understand for a lot of people to be like, you should shoot that. You should record that. We should see that. And it's like, I guess that's just where trust comes in. Like, I didn't think to spoil that moment by being like, oh, Don, we should stop this meeting and get this on camera. I do get hints every now and then of like, oh, maybe I should shoot this. Maybe I should get like a fun behind the scenes thing to show on Cup of Jones. But trust us. We are, can you see these bags, yo? Like, we're working. Like, we are on Slack all the time. I'm talking to Bloodworth on Slack probably about 2 full hours of every single day. Whenever Kyle, even if he's not on shows, even if there's like tabletop and then we have to do something else and then the podcast, if there's 2 hours before the podcast, he's in the office just at his laptop working on things. A lot of times Don will bring in his laptop to produce things like Huber Syndrome or a review that Ben or somebody's working on that he's editing. Sometimes Ian will bring in his laptop and then we'll stick around to be editing things and producing things. And just because work that we're doing in the studio doesn't directly translate into a live stream or a show or something that you see on YouTube doesn't mean it's not happening, and doesn't mean we're ever going to feel the need to like photograph and prove it. It's like zoo animals, like, look, he's working, and I understand that's frustrating. And so a lot of times, Varun, I think to wrap this up, when you come to me and you're like, hey, people don't like the way the studio looks. It's like, there's people who are never going to like the way the studio looks. It's fine. There are people who didn't like the way the garage looks. There are people who didn't like the way the garage looks and don't like the way the studio looks. And, I'm sad. I wish there's something I could do to please those people, but I'm not sad with how the studio looks. I feel very comfortable and at home in that space. And hopefully it's something that people get used to over time. But a lot of this stuff, like, I'm not surprised. And it does feed into my... I guess fears is a safe word. My concerns, my focus on, and the focus of all of the allies on helping you understand what it takes to make this company work and give us the tools that we need to produce this content, because you are giving us money to do that. And so when we set up a new goal, when you see 55K ahead of 52K, what does that mean? Why do you need $3,000 above doing a full playthrough to produce that guest show? And maybe we can we should, I think, and we will get into more specific details of like, where that money's going and how, changes that will happen within Easy Allies when that show gets produced. Yes, I don't feel I have closure on this comment, but I do think we should move on. These people aren't wrong. Like, all of these people are entitled to their opinions, and obviously, I know it must be kind of weird and frustrating, especially when we get a studio, especially because like there's 6 rooms, man, and you're telling me a day might go by where these 6 rooms are empty. But the office, like everything else that we do, like the camera I'm staring into right now, the mic that I'm using, the PC that I'm using, the monitor, my PlayStation 4 Pro, that I'm going to be playing Days Gone on today, the Move controllers that I'm either going to buy at Best Buy or get from Bloodworth. It's a tool. It's the same thing as the studio. It's a thing that we can use to produce content to deliver to you, and being beholden to the studio in terms of reproducing this corporate, this corporate schedule, man. Like, I sound like such a hippie saying this, but like, we're going to follow pathways that make the most sense in terms of enable us to produce the most amount of content in the most comfortable, timely fashion, and at the end of the day, be producing things that we are passionate about, that we want to produce. Damiani and Ben are not producing their streams at 9:30 on Tuesday nights out of obligation. Like, they're doing it because they really want to do it. And if they make changes to it, they're going to do it because they feel those changes need to happen, and not necessarily because there's a way this should be done. And I think that's a lot of people that think that way about the studio and are frustrated because they're like, I'm not seeing in the studio space. This studio doesn't remind me of Game Trailers. Doesn't remind us of Game Trailers either. We have no interest in going back to that job. As much fun as it looked like we were having at Game Trailers, that was a job in a much different sense than this is a job. And apologies to a lot of people that those things are different and those expectations aren't being met. It's real. It's a conversation I want to have at least like once a month. You know, it's something that we need to constantly come back to. And it's frustrating that these people don't drop $1 on Patreon and ask me. Just hit me with your best shot. You know, like, don't be offensive. Don't be crude, ever. But I'm ready to answer anything. I'm ready to talk about all of this stuff. And so, yeah, sometimes I hear like, so I heard from, it's like Ferris Bueller, like my best friend's cousin's boyfriend's aunt's, dog sitter said that he doesn't like the studio. And it's like, all right. They have a very important opinion that they don't want to share on Patreon, but, on your actual business format. But most of Game Trailers didn't have a studio, right? Bonus Round had access to one at Viacom, but so much was shot in closets and conference rooms. Yep, this is true. I miss those closets. Adam Sirai, why are the larger sponsor slots limited? Wouldn't you want as many people to sponsor as possible? Is it a Patreon imposed limit? So yeah, our Frame Trap, Easy Allies podcast, and mega sponsor slots are limited. I believe there's 4 or 5 for Frame Trap. And there are 8 for the Easy Allies podcast, and there's only 1 mega sponsor slot. Mega exclusive, mega sponsor. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. Obviously, you want to create a scarcity. You want to make it interesting. Oh, only 1 slot left? Oh, okay, well, I'll fill in. More specifically, though, it's so that the middle of both of those podcasts isn't 5 hours long. So obviously, yeah, it would be nice to have more money, but when we have some of these people writing like huge paragraphs, it takes a long time to get through. And I think whenever you have that commercial break, you want to, make that commercial break as short as you possibly can. 9 for each. Oh, 9 for each podcast. I didn't know that. But yeah, maybe Blood can expound on that a little bit more, but that's the main thing. We just don't want that chunk to be long. And we question sometimes because I think we have more. I think we started at like 6 and then went up to 8 and then went up to 9. I know that number has gotten bigger as time has gone on because I think people have gotten more used to the podcast in general, the format of what we do. Their expectations are settled somewhat. 9 for each. Okay, 8 normal, 1 mega. Got it. Andy Zolkifli, E3 is around the corner, and I'm sure there will be a betting special very soon. I want to ask, when the Allies came up with the forfeit to the losers of the nets, were there moments where the forfeits might be considered too cruel? Losers of the nets. Yeah, just so basically like what the terms were that were too cruel. Yeah, we've I think it might have been pretty rare that we felt bad about one person having to do something. I think like the cruelest thing I can think of is like the Battletoads test. Like actually having to beat that level in Battletoads is brutal. And I'm glad that we had that highlight recently. We watched that again. Because I think any kind of performance-based thing, something where even, Ben, who loves to challenge himself, even that stream where Ben wanted to get to the number 1 in Hearthstone. And I was just like, man, that sounds so hard and something that might, likely not happen. And that sounds very stressful. And so I think we've kind of steered away from those things. I think it's there's like a fine line between something that is challenging and requires creativity and a certain amount of time, like building a diorama or a Titanfall costume. But at the same time, you need that little bit of shame in there, just a dash, So I think it's that the equal line of I worked on this and I actually have pride a little bit in my work. That silly painting that I painted live when we did that stream, like I worked on that. I obviously wanted that to be like not terrible. I think it was Noah or somebody came along and like did their version. I'm like, well, that one's good. Okay, well, all right. Like, thanks for shaming me. But no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so it needs to be a little bit of work, a little bit of creativity, a little bit of shame, I think is like the fine balance. I don't think it's been very rare that something's actually gone through and we've required someone to do something that we then regret at the end of the day, but we most certainly have come up with ideas that you had never heard of, and someone was like, what about this for the bet? And we were like, oh no, that's way too cruel. Max versus the games. You mentioned that you were waiting for the dumpster to be free to throw away all your cardboard boxes. I was wondering why you guys aren't recycling them. With the quantity of cardboard boxes you guys seem to have, it's a shame that it all just to waste it all by throwing it in the trash. While I'm at it, what's the policy for recycling at Easy Allies? Are you recycling all the soft drink cans and bottles you drink? Red Bull, San Pellegrino, beers, etc.? Also, would you consider using a water machine instead of bottled water? Not only is it good for the environment, you would also save a lot of money in the long run. Yes, and yes. It is a dumpster, but it is a recycling dumpster. We have two dumpsters. We have a trash dumpster. We have a recycling dumpster. We have, I believe, 3 separate recycling bins. One is in the streaming set. One is... I think in the office, maybe we just have 2. I think we just have 2 on opposite ends of the studio. One is in the green room and one is in the streaming room. So when you see Ian chuck his San Pellegrino across the stream room and either make a basket or not, he is doing that into the blue container for recycling. And we have long recycled at Easy Allies always, because we used to be here at my house, and I have recycling containers as well. Some buildings don't, man. Sometimes I talk to people that have apartments and they're like, yeah, my building doesn't recycle. It's like, what? Or like, I have a friend that he's like, yeah, we throw it all into one thing and they say they organize it. You know, they say they take the recycling out and put it in another container later, and who knows? Like, I haven't followed the truck around. I don't know if they do that, but yes, we do recycle. It is in a dumpster. So I talked about a dumpster, but it is a recycling dumpster. We are recycling soft cans and bottles, Red Bull, San Pellegrino, beers, etc. And Mr. Brad Ellis and also Amanda Troop suggested to me that let's get a bottle for the studio. I think the meaning just, we go in and we fill up a bottle and can save money in the long run. I think we might still put water bottles in the fridge just to have them in case we get somebody running at the last minute and they just like, I just need to grab water really quick. Or if we have guests, if Hideo Kojima comes into our studio and sees the poured bottle and goes, oh no, only bottled water, please. And we're like, oh, sure, go on. Aquafina, Mr. Kojima. There you go. Like, I think it'd be nice to have, some reserves waiting in the fridge, but, they suggested having like a giant bottle that we bring in. The trick is, as we just mentioned, we're not in the studio a lot, or there are days where we are not in the studio, and feels like we're in the studio a lot. And where's that going to be delivered? Is that person going to have like access to the space, or where are they going to drop that off? And so maybe I'll have them like drop it off at my house and I'll bring it in, or maybe they drop it off at one of the other allies' houses and then they're responsible for switching that out. The other thing too, and something that I've been putting off for a while that I would love to do, is maybe get like each of the allies' cups. Maybe get like little Huber's been bringing in his own drinking apparatus, and obviously I got this boy that I bring in. I sometimes forget. Apologies. There have been some episodes of the Easy Allies podcast that don't feature the cup, but yeah, it'd be fun to get a cup for everybody and have everybody just fill up their cup before we do streams and shows. Max versus the games. Thank you for making sure we're helping save the planet. Connell, once the studio is fully settled, when will it be fully settled? Have you considered renting the space to other channels as a source of revenue? I'm not even sure it would work since you need someone in the control room during that time. It's an awesome space and I see potential there. Don't worry, not stealth asking for myself. I'm practically on the other side of the world in South Australia. Nah. Certainly not in 2019. I'd be very surprised if we get to that point in 2019. Maybe in the future. Might be fun. I don't know if it would necessarily be other channels. Might be other shows, though. Might be fun down the road to have streams and shows that don't feature any of the 9 of the regular allies that you see. Having other people come in and produce stuff for our channel and specifically live stuff. Again, like when you look at our YouTube channel, it's like, we're almost capped on shows. Like we don't want to add too much to that channel because then it's just like, it's hard to even know some of these shows exist because there's just so much going on this channel that again, it might behoove us to like maybe separate some content on different channels down the road, depending on how much stuff that we're producing. But on Twitch, hey, sky's the limit, baby. Again, one of my dreams is to have twitch.tv/EasyAllies be live 24/7 all the time. And so, like you said, yeah, that not only requires having somebody on the control room, which is a fun thing to think about, having like a control room employee, having somebody come in. Bled says, one thing that's important about production is closed containers as much as possible. We'd need bottles with caps, not cups. Not can we time? I got my cup right here, man. You just bring it in and you wash it at home and then you bring it back in. Closed container. Why are you freaking about closed container? Look, it's open, man. I'm fine. Woo, I'm spinning the water around Bloodworth now. Blood's got a point, but we also have no other sink than the bathroom, which makes dishes tricky. Yeah, so people drink Coke or Red Bull or coffee or something like in a cup. Then there's nowhere to clean it. That would be a nice place to clean it. We don't want to like stain the sink and have people come in our bathroom and be like, so yeah. So like, do I just pack up all the cups at the end of the day and take them home and wash them? I don't know. We'll see. So I want other people to come into our space. Obviously, guests we talk about a lot. Max is coming in, which is fun. Yes, I would like that maybe in the future. Probably not happening this year. And certainly not other channels. You're not going to see someone like, it's not going to be like movie fights back at Defy when you're like, wait, isn't that the GT live stage? Irunian, your discussion of the guest list for Mysterious Monsters made me wonder if another situation like with Cory Barlog last year were to fall into your laps, how equipped, interested would you be to film an emergency Mysterious Monsters episode with a featured guest? Let's assume for purposes of this question that their PR team has already given the go-ahead. Hell yeah, I would encourage it. I don't know. I can't speak to the exact logistics of how quickly one of those things gets up and running. I know that they have like a vault of questions that they've already programmed into the game that it draws upon. I don't know if those are divided up episode by episode. We've had a couple of questions show up in later episodes and we're like, wait a minute, whoa, that was in a previous episode. And the person's like, I already know the answer to that. So I think the questions being ready, I think is the biggest concern. Production-wise, yeah, I'll host it. If be Brandon Jones's Mysterious Monsters if Huber's not available. Bino, what does a typical day in the studio actually look like? There is no typical day in the studio. Obviously, we know a good chunk of what goes on there on a Tuesday, but what about other days? Am I correct in thinking the bulk of each ally's work still happens at home? Uh-huh. And they only come in the studio when they have something specific they need to do or shoot? Uh-huh. How long will the guys typically hang around before and after shoots? Obviously, the after shoot hangout is a lot more. Jones, have you seen how many times I've knocked bottles over? Hey, dude. Again, you're speaking to your own personal problems, Bloodworth. If you have problems knocking bottles over, then yeah, obviously. Have you ever noticed how many times I've knocked this over during the Easy Allies podcast? I believe that would be 0. So I don't know if this is necessarily something that's like a company-wide issue that we're dealing with and sounds more like a Bloodworth knocking over stuff issue. So these are two separate issues. I have knocked stuff over, though. In the past. I only say that in the studio, but in the garage, I've most certainly, knocked stuff over, but we'll see. Any production space I've been to has a big no unopened containers. That's what you said, Blake, professional production space. We are a production space. I don't know if we are professional yet. But yeah. So you're saying I should put a cup? They actually make them. They have one of the last times we were at the Ren Fair, which is where I bought this, by the way. They had like leather things that would be on. How annoying would that be? Where I'm just like, untying it, opening up, put it back on. But yeah, we got those LED lights right on the front of the desk. We don't want Red Bull going into the LEDs. So yeah, there's just no typical day. I mean, generally, your early risers are always Michael Damiani and Brad Ellis, and Kyle Bossman's a wild card. Sometimes Kyle shows up really early because Kyle has to travel from a great distance, and sometimes he will plan that error on the side of getting there super early or earlier, and then poof, there's no traffic, and he'll show up like an hour early. But Damiani definitely, I think Damiani and Dawn, I think, win the awards for being in the studio the longest when you wouldn't have seen what they were working on. So I didn't know if Damiani was going to show up for the Star Wars reactions, actually. So I got to the reactions We went live at 11:30, and I got there around 10:15, and there's Michael Damiani sitting at the computer playing FTL and ready to go. And so I think he gives himself a lot of time because he's also very far away. And Don probably gets the award for most work done in the studio that you never saw unless you watched like the final video that he produced. But that office space with the 3 black desks that you've seen, that is mostly Ian Hink, Kyle Bossman, and Don Casanova that hang out in there. So it might be fun down the road to get enough desks in there that an ally can maybe just claim one. Maybe Kyle can just be like, this is kind of my desk. I'm just going to put my stuff here, maybe a couple pictures up or something like that. And then Don's like, cool, I'll use this desk. One of those is just a fold-up desk. So we still have more work to do with furniture-wise in that space. We got to put stuff up on the walls, man. Those walls are bare. I got to get some stuff framed. Again, frames, great example of a budget thing. Like if we were to get all of the cool art that we've gotten framed, it would probably cost $300, $400. Totally worth it because I want to get that stuff up on the wall. I think it does great stuff, great for morale. Obviously, people coming in, checking out the studio for the first time. Ooh, look at this fun room. But again, $400, the new mics that I'm looking at, I think are like $300 a pop. So it's like, should we get frames? Should we get new microphones? The fun challenge of spending all of your money. But yeah, there's no typical day. I was gonna describe a Tuesday, but maybe when we get like a weird day, I'll lay it out, time wise. But look at tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm waking up at 7:30 and I'm gonna stream Dreams at 8:30 in the morning, and then I don't have any shoots but until the podcast, and then I go and I shoot the podcast because it's not only like what the studio looks like, but every single ally comes in at a different time depending on what they're shooting, sometimes you'll get a side day where, somebody's going out of town or like we'll have to shoot something last minute. Maybe we'll do a Saturday or something. They'll do like 3 tabletops on a Saturday. So yeah, there's no 2 days are alike. And isn't that beautiful? The Champ, have you ever had to play the I'm the Boss, Do As I Say card, either at Easy Allies or Game Trailers? Yeah, I got to do that a lot more at Game Trailers, but sadly, not as much as Easy Allies. I don't think you would ever have to play the I'm the Boss card, but it was just a thought I had. Yeah, one of the most uncomfortable I'm the Boss cards that I had to play at Game Trailers was, and it was fun because when you have higher ups, you're just like, oh, blame them. It's not no, they asked me to do this. This isn't my idea. This was just my mean boss. My boss is making me do these things. But when we were, when Game Trailers got shut down, it wasn't too much of a surprise. We had meetings where they were like, we need to turn around traffic. We need to turn around the stuff that you're producing. Basically, everything that you're doing needs to be a hit. You cannot produce anything if it's not huge. And so we were like, we really like doing tabletop adventures. And it's like, you can't. Like, we really, like, even like Final Bossman was on the chopping block. And to think of like, we're not doing Final Bossman now because Kyle isn't interested in doing Final Bossman. He wants to work on other projects. But imagine how crazy it would be to cancel the Final Bossman while you're at Game Trailers. People would be like, what? Our community would be like, what are you doing? And it's like, well, it doesn't earn 6 figures. And at Defy Media, that was not only like, oh, good job. That's like, oh, no, cancel that show. How many views did you get? 50? Your show's canceled immediately. Like Clever, Smosh, all of those teams wouldn't bat an eye. Screen Junkies, they wouldn't bat an eye at a shit gone. Whereas like, because they have this structure of, when we created Game Trailers, we had a bunch of friends that were hanging out together. And then we brought in more employees and they saw friends. And so they became friends. There's more friends. And so Game Trailers kept evolving as this thing of like, is everybody enjoying what they're doing? Like it was rare that Satterfield would be like, Blood can speak to this more than I can, but be like, you review this. Like, I don't want to review it. Review it. Like these situations didn't happen a whole lot. And so I got to a point when I was in charge of the silly thing before Game Trailers shut down of like, guys, we have to figure out something to do to turn these views around, or I'm going to have to cancel these shows. And I think we came to an agreement of, no, we're not going to, but that likely means we're going to be shut down. And ta-da! But here at Easy Allies, it's not that, but I do make executive decisions. They're just decisions that the other allies are like, yeah, that's fine. Like the furniture, like I consulted a little bit with the allies, but and there's also a lot of times on Slack we're all like at the channel. I'll be like, hey, everybody. And so everybody can see a comment to be like, I'm going to do this tomorrow. And then nobody says anything. And it's like, did they not say anything because I got not 8 approvals? Or did they not see that? Or whatever. I don't care. I'm just going to do it. And so, I'm the boss. Do as I say. Kind of comes up in as far as like budget decisions. Like I pick what we eat for dinner every Tuesday night when we gather for the group stream. So like, I guess that's me being the boss. Like there's sometimes where the allies are just like, I just don't care enough to, what are you doing, Jones? Let me look at this proposal. It was a lot of trust here that's working out pretty well for Easy Allies. Reviews were pretty much directly assigned, very different from Easy A. Got it. Yeah, before I was going to say that, I'm like, I don't know, actually, because, see, that Bloodworth, I will not take this for granted and will enjoy the opportunity because I don't think I was ever assigned anything that I reviewed at Game Trailers. I think every review I worked on at Game Trailers, I was like, I would like to do that, please. I created this website. Can I review Grand Theft Auto 5? Oh, well, yes. Blood reviewed tons of stuff he wouldn't want to review. Got it. There you go. Shoulder Guy, are there plans for a Hall of Great stream this month? Yes, I believe it's April 30th, if not the week before that. But it is, I thought it was the last Tuesday of the month, but that's like right at the end of the month. Maybe Blood can correct me. But yeah, Hall of Great's coming up. I got my game all picked out. I know what I'm going to do. I really want to produce a video for it, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll have time. I'm going to have to like borrow some equipment and stuff to do it. Spoilers. Christopher Frederick, should I change the channel name and art for Easy A Weekly Clips? I know I asked if I was stepping on toes a few weeks back, but after what you said about some game news last week, I felt almost called out. I just want to make sure going forward that what I'm doing still isn't at odds with what you want from the community. I can be very quick with this answer. No, it's fine. I think maybe the crossover you thought is that I said that they shouldn't be producing our name, but I think that you calling it Easy A Weekly Clips, I think establishes that like is already an established brand. And again, it is a highlight show. It is a show that doesn't have its own editorial voice beyond, if you were producing Easy A Weekly Clips and then at the end you were like, and now for the political minute, I'd be like, well, wait, it's like, it is a fine line. We don't necessarily have like a page on our website you can go to that lists specifically how all of those relationships work. But rest assured, if you're doing something in our community that we don't want you to do, we'll talk to you. We'll reach out. We will communicate that. So apologies if you felt the shots fired. I did not. I did not have you in mind when I was thinking of the wrong ways to do that. Captain Kraken, I just wanted to add my support enthusiasm to the idea mentioned a few weeks ago about expanding the Allies' bio pages on the website. Yep, on the list. This has been something I had been thinking about for a while, and once I heard you bring it up, I figured I would add my support. It'd be great to have a quick overview of the Allies for new fans to come and get to know you guys better. A section with each Ally's top 3 movies, games, albums would be a great way to get a quick snapshot of each ally. Personally, my favorite moments from all of Easy Allies come from tidbits scattered throughout all the shows you produce, where Allies discuss the media they hold in the highest regards. For example, Ben and Huber talking on Frame Trap about the only game they would give a perfect 10-2. Again, I know you guys have much bigger things going on, and this would almost certainly fall pretty low on the priority list, but I just thought I would add my support for the idea. It's a great idea. You would think it wouldn't take that long, but it's just something we got to put on the list and something we got to commit to, and there's just always a lot going on that list. There's almost always 3 or 4 items on my list that are just like glaring at me, and I'm like, I know. And so that's like, number 14 or something. And again, like when I talked about merch, or like when I talked about updating graphics on a lot of our shows, something that when you talk about website updates, I kind of want to package it. I kind of was like, well, as long as we're dealing with the website right now, as long as I'm calling my friend Brent to come and design more things for our website or just add more things to the website, let's do a lot. Let's get more bang for our buck. Let's see if we can get a package deal, save some money. Straw Hat Ninja, has there been any discussion about different allies going to different anime conventions around the country and hosting panels or meetups to spread the good name of Easy Allies? I know a few of the allies really like anime, so I thought that was a way they could appeal to that community specifically. Maybe not. I don't think we've had an anime exclusive con discussion, but we have talked about what it would take to get all of us around the United States and the world to as many different places as possible. We've definitely looked at a calendar and looked at each month, and we're like, okay, maybe we can afford to do that once a month. So like, what would the one big event be every month? Obviously, brings to mind Gamescom, the various PAXs, Comic-Con and everything like that. But we have some fun anime conventions just here in Los Angeles. And I hear that some of the allies do like anime. So yeah, that would definitely be on the list. But in terms of travel, something that we've already actively put further down the road than a lot of the other things we're producing this year. But we will get there. We will get to the point where we talk about that. Will we get to the anime convention? Remains to be seen. Rappy, I have an issue with what I think is a problem with a lot of spoiler mode episodes. That problem is, where is all of the spoiler talk? Originally, my comment wasn't going to be about spoiler mode, and then I watched the DMC5 spoiler mode. I have not seen this yet, by the way, full disclosure. I just don't think the format structure of the show works all that well, at least from the episodes I've watched. I think one of the main appeals of the show was to hear the Allies' thoughts on certain spoiler topics of a game that could never be brought up in streams or chat because, spoilers. Now, I know you guys can't cover every little detail about a game, but I think there needs to be a bigger focus on those topics. Perhaps singling out or finding those specific topics might be a bit more work, but I'll provide an alternative suggestion, which will probably be more work still. For the Spider-Verse episode, Damiani asked and pulled questions from patrons. Now, while not everyone's question can be answered, I think it provided a much better format and also involved the community a bit more. As for what my original comment was going to be about, I won't go into detail, but quick suggestion: Final Fantasy-esque boss enemy death animations for mysterious monsters. That was the comment I was referring to earlier. A brilliant idea, and I did think of that when I was on the show. It was like, oh, it'd be cool if the food freako was like, it had a sound effect that was, you could hear the pots rattling and the food bubbling and everything, and just like, that's more money. But it's a fun suggestion. The spoiler mode is fascinating. I hear what you're saying, and I'm never opposed to more structure on the shows that we produce, but spoiler mode is interesting in that it's a show with a very irregular production schedule. We never really know when we're going to be doing one, unless it's something that we know we're going to be able to, like movies are the easiest thing to predict because we know, hey, just that weekend, take 2 hours, go see it. We're shooting, Avengers on a Tuesday night. And so it's like, I'm probably not going to see it that weekend. I'll probably see it later, maybe a Sunday afternoon, but most likely a Monday afternoon or Monday night. And, or if it's super sold out, then I'll go see it on a Tuesday. But, it's a podcast that we produce. Spoiler Mode is a podcast at the end of the day, and it's a podcast that we produce that the host is continually changing. And we don't have any other shows like that. Even like the Q&A is generally moderated by Ben. And so because the baton gets passed, the format just naturally changes. And that doesn't necessarily mean like we're not organized or we don't have suggestions of how to produce that show. But if I was to, if Ben was to do something for Devil May Cry, or, if Huber was to host a spoiler mode for something for Gotham, with the sit downs with Bloodworth, maybe, wink, wink, at the end of it all, excuse me. And I said, oh, hey, Huber, you should do a post and ask for questions. And Huber was like, nah. I'd be like, okay, I think it does work. I think it does bring up, case in point. I know this wasn't a spoiler mode, but we did get spoiler-ish, spoiler adjacent on this recent episode of Reaction Shots that I hosted with Huber. And we took questions from the community, and that was great because they brought up a lot of things that we weren't thinking of. And so not only just specifically to get spoiler focused, but because it's always great, our wonderful community brings up great suggestions and great things that they noticed and topics. It was like, oh, wasn't thinking about that. Great idea. And so I do personally, I think they add a lot to it. And if I'm going to host a spoiler mode in the future, I would like to do that. I'm curious who's going to, Damiani might host the one for Avengers. We'll see. I think we're all, the Allies are collectively very excited for that movie, I think. But I know that when I hosted one, Red Dead especially, I got right to the end. Like when I go back and watch Red Dead, and let me know what you think about that, maybe if you want to continue this conversation in the future, Rappy. Because I remember when I started Red Dead, I was like, okay, here's the thing I couldn't wait to talk about with anybody, and that's the stuff you get access to at the end of Red Dead Redemption 2. I'll leave it at that. Red Dead 2 ends and stuff still happens. And that stuff, I think, is some of my favorite stuff in that entire game. So I couldn't wait to talk about it. And so, but, when you're talking about a movie or a show or maybe another game that, like Mortal Kombat, where it's like, I want to talk about the story, but I don't want to spoil it. And so it's less like, aha, we can finally talk about this one moment. It's like, if I don't want to talk about that moment, I'm not going to force it. It's just, I view spoiler mode as less, oh, we can finally talk about these specific details that we obviously need to cover, and more, we can talk about whatever we want. We can just, we'd never have to be afraid of bringing stuff up unless we're like bringing up another franchise that people didn't know they were signing up to be spoiled on. But when you say that the format is, I don't think the format structure of the show works. I think the format structure of the show changes in ways that we can be possibly more observant of, but in ways that sometimes, obviously I think a spoiler mode for a Spider-Man is much different from the spoiler mode from a Red Dead is much different than a spoiler mode for Life is Strange. I think all of those are naturally going to have a different format because they're different properties. Blood says, funny thing, I'm not sure if I've been on a spoiler mode I didn't host. I got to look back. Probably because I'm eternally behind everyone else. Bloodworth, eternally behind. Red Sky, what do you see as the next steps you and the other allies want to take to continue building upon the quality of existing show streams while leveraging the potential of the studio? There it is. That's the greatest question. Recently, I've seen discussions on the Uneasy Alliance subreddit regarding topics such as production workflows for shows. We kind of talked about that. Other people having issues that don't show up to Cup of Jones. Ally coordination, shoot scheduling, in-studio work, and show promotion communication. I know you can't speak for all the other allies, but I think it would be helpful to hear your thoughts on where you would like to see things heading from here to better set future expectations. Okay. We spent a little bit of time talking about all the allies being in the studio. What are you doing with your time? You see Don just sitting at his laptop. What are you doing, Don? Let me steer this to another topic that I think about a lot, and I think about more and more as we look at goals for the future of the Patreon and look at, oh, hey, okay, what if we had $5,000 more? What if we had $10,000 more? And obviously that is, drum roll please, other people coming to work for this company, other people editing videos for us, other people working in that control room, other people possibly bringing their own shows, other people editing reviews, other people coming in and helping us with the workload. Is that something, does more money coming into this company, and I think this is a decision that we're going to have to make officially, and you will be getting more information on, but does more money coming into this company mean that all the allies need to work harder? Or we have the opportunity to bring in other people so that we don't necessarily have to work on those things and we can work on other stuff. Can the Easy Allies Q&A be hosted by a community manager? Can the community showcase be hosted by a community manager? Can I step away from the showcase? Please. Can I possibly not do the showcase one day? Please. I say that selfishly because it's fun to possibly work on other things. I've done a lot of game streaming from here because I've really been focused on the business. I've been focused on that studio. I've been focused on communicating with the other allies, making sure stuff gets done. Looks like we may shoot Sekiro on Thursday. Got it, for spoiler mode. Yeah, I think that is kind of where my head is at least specifically in terms of like extra resources. Does that translate into allies' jobs changing? And that's kind of what I want to talk about when we hit the 55K goal is I am going to have to book guests, and I had the time to do that back at Game Trailers. I don't have the time to do that necessarily with my job right now. And so if we hit the 55K goal, part of that $3,000, that bump from 52 to 55, might entail hiring somebody to handle other responsibilities or handle that job or, maybe work in the control room. And so we can have somebody that's on those controls, switching cameras up for more shows. Do we make more stuff? Do we make our stuff better? I don't know. And I don't think it seems like we've been in the studio for a long time, but again, the lights are the lights have yet to be repaired. There are still some production workflow, I wouldn't say issues, but just, a level of comfort from everybody, not only just from Ian and myself and Damiani, who are more technically involved with how these rooms are being created, how these shows are being produced, but with all of the allies, getting comfortable in their roles of like, yes, I would like to know how to do that. I would like to be more involved in this technical part of Easy Allies, or no, I don't. And so if we know, okay, you're not interested in working on that, you don't eventually want to cut this show someday, you don't want to be in the control room or consider doing more episodes of this show or something, then that's good to know where that line is. And we can maybe evolve this show after that, or maybe, stop production of that or not have expectations that will grow in that way so that we can have you focused on other things, or maybe, have you focused on other shows that we weren't thinking of producing. That felt a little rambly, but that is kind of where my I feel it is a rambly question that asks for a rambly answer, just in terms of like there's lots of I'm sorry that I'm not throwing out as many buzzwords as I think that question deserves. When do you see as the next steps that you and the other allies want to take to continue building upon the quality of existing show streams while leveraging the potential of the studio? Leveraging is such a great word. Yeah, I think we are slowly figuring out, like we were talking about the production schedule, and there are shifts happen and changes do get made. We do realize, okay, that was bad. We shot 3 Mysterious Monsters episodes in a row. That was very exhausting for Huber. And I noticed that. I was like, okay, 3 is probably the cap. We probably shouldn't do more than that, because there obviously is the guest regulation. You need to have somebody who's welcoming the guests as they come in and, okay, hang out in the green room. Okay, now we're ready for you for your episode to shoot. But it's tough because whereas I can talk about these things just personally myself, where my head is at, I don't want to make official announcements, because then you're like, wait a minute, you were talking about leaving some show. I was just talking about getting comfortable with the studio, getting to a point where we can possibly, to have a hiatus for something like Tabletop Escapades if the need arises. And will these shows, are these shows built in a way to be that malleable to make those changes? Dragon Hunter, about that Game of Thrones spoiler mode, maybe you could do one after the first 3 episodes and a second one after the last 3 episodes. It's technically a business question. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see if after 3 episodes we're just like chomping at the bit and we're like, we gotta do it. But probably not. We'll probably save it. It's only 6 episodes. Probably save it for the end. And then, man, that's going to be a 2.5 hour discussion. That's going to be Cup of Jones length. Eric Greenberg, I want to talk about the exclusive shows here on Patreon. Not the shows itself, but the execution of the exclusive part. I don't think you guys are marketing it enough, and I think Patreon is awful for discoverability. What happens in these is these shows are being sent out to die shortly after release. My methodology isn't that good, but I've noticed that almost all of the comments on exclusive shows were done at the time of its launch, so it seems that older exclusive shows aren't reaching new patrons. You guys have way better tools to check that as a fact anyway. So I have a suggestion that is easy to execute. Make the first episode of each exclusive show available for all on YouTube. I don't think any patron would be mad at the loss of one episode. Make this change just for future shows if you think there is a previous promise to adhere. That would help marketing and discoverability both. YouTube's not perfect, but it's a way better option than Patreon for it. It would reach and entice viewers there. And also, you put Blood's episode guide on the description of each video, and it's an easier, more organized path to finding older stuff while making more people know about it. Yeah, Eric, not a bad idea. And again, I talked about, we will consider that. I think that is an idea to be considered. Actually, let me add that to takeaways officially. Make the first exclusive show public. We were talking about doing a fundraiser for Patreon, having Easy Allies, Easy Living maybe be Patreon aware, and constantly be bringing up Patreon, which a lot of people definitely argue that we should do, or just having an event, some sort of separate thing or an initiative, if you will. That could be a fun way to do it. That could be a fun thing to add to that. But again, I'm just one of 8 people, so I will bring that up. Isaiah Sanchez, since you guys have started to think about, I will say that when you talk about these shows going out to die, we're proud of those shows. We did not produce those shows being like, big numbers, baby, big numbers. We knew that was going to be for an exclusive audience. That's always what we consider, is that it will be the smallest of the Easy Allies audiences that will be enjoying these exclusive shows. But that's also kind of the idea behind it and why that hasn't been a concern of ours. That's not something that we're afraid of. That we're just not getting those views on those patron exclusive shows. Isaiah Sanchez, since you guys have started to think about E3 already, I have a small concern, and maybe it being a little nitpicky. I wanted to know how reactions are going to work. Will they be in the streaming space or in the recording space? In the main stage, the recording space. Possibly both. I ask because for the last 2 years, you guys have been doing things like the podcast live, and seeing everyone involved, even when they are to the side, I can still see them. My question is, will we be able to see everyone when the stream is on for reactions and for things that will be recorded live? My favorite moment from the last couple of E3s was being in chat and breaking Huber and Ben. Seeing their reaction made me see what a wonderful time this was. I know Kyle got mad, but it was to me a moment that defined that E3. Yeah, I think whatever setup we have for E3, it'll behoove us to be able to capture as much of that, as many allies on camera at once as possible. I'll leave it at that. Snowcone Guy, enough daydreaming about an FAQ for Cup of Jones. Let's get it done. Here are some suggestions. I'm not going to answer any of these because obviously they've been answered in the past, but Snowcone Guy, I did make a Google Doc just for myself if any of you want to add more possible suggestions for the FAQ. I'm going to continue to daydream about the FAQ because it is not super high on my priority list right now, because even though Cup of Jones episodes are getting very lengthy, they're not too long yet. But here's some suggestions. Will Kyle make the final Bossman again? What is the salary of the allies? Why haven't you done a live reaction to X? How many, not the movie X, but to blank, basically. Not the movie blank. How much money are you making from Twitch, PayPal donations, YouTube, and merchandising? How do you plan to add more merchandising articles in the future? What is your background? And how did game trailers / Easy Allies happen? Will you do another marathon or fundraiser stream? Will you have more guests on your show and streams in the future? Can I recommend somebody or apply myself to help out doing certain jobs? Why didn't you review X or blank? Can I make a suggestion for the content of the podcast here? Are there bad questions that I should not ask? There you go. You all know the answers to all of those. Alex Yunker, after a love and respect comment on last week's podcast from April 10th, 2019, and playing with you and Huber in the Division 2, I'm Guide of the Fallen, I just wanted to say thanks to you and the other allies for being a positive element of my life currently. I've had some medical issues for the past 5+ years, and I'm finally starting to move forward. Easy Allies has been an integral component of my recovery. Basically, I just wanted to say thank you. Alex, that's the best. When we hear, Alex, you're the best. You're making me so happy for so many reasons that I'll get into in a second. But that always makes us feel good when you help people get through something. I look for those things, and when I find them, I'm so happy okay, there's that thing I can just put on in the background. There's that thing that I can listen to. A little hunger pang there. I think I'm hungry. I haven't come close to finishing the smoothie. I normally do the blueberry smoothie, but I did the mixed fruit, and those big old frozen strawberries, I think, were a little too much for the blender this morning. I got a very chunky smoothie here because you needed to know that. That was very important. If you are unaware, I streamed The Division 2 with Michael Huber, and along comes one of our lovely community members and guildmates, Guide of the Fallen. And I was like, Guide of the Fallen. I recognize Guide of the Fallen. And it was funny to go into my Guide of the Fallen. I sent you a message. I don't know if you replied. You might have. I've not been online that much because I've been playing Days Gone on PlayStation 4. But I went into messages, and Guide of the Fallen and I had chatted about Toy Box Tuesday. And so I was like, whoa, Guide of the Fallen's been around for a while. And Guide of the Fallen comes in on the stream and not only kicks ass in all of our endeavors in the Dark Zone and beyond, but like power levels me faster and more gratifyingly than I've ever been power leveled in a video game in my entire life. I went from gear level 293 to 460 in a matter of seconds because Guide of the Fallen just had a bunch of gear on them that admittedly Guide of the Fallen, Alex, you're probably not using. Like, I get that. Like, you're like, I know it seems like a really nice thing to me, but I can imagine from your perspective, you're like, I'm literally going to throw this gear out, Jones. Like, I'm this is all going in the trash if you don't want this right now. And so it was gear that was just under the gear level that Alex was at, but because we were in a party together, and only for a temporary amount of time, they could put that gear just on the floor and I could just pick it up and throw it on. And so I just kaboom. Like, you just imagine like not even doing the raid and then like somebody comes out with all the raid gear. So here you go. And that was incredible. So everybody, shout out to Alex, aka Guide of the Fallen, for power leveling me. But also just hearing I just wanted to give you a shout out because that was, and man, helped me save time. We talk about time that, you know, again, not in the studio because I'm at home trying to get raid ready, you know, like I want to get that Days Gone review done because on the 26th, the day Days Gone launches, also that raid launches in Division 2, and I got to be ready for that. So I want to get Dreams out of the way, know how to play that game. I want to get my Days Gone review done so I can be ready for Division. And you just saved me so much time of grinding all of that stuff to get that gear ready. So shout out. Insert the "you cheated yourself" meme, says Austin. Yes, of course. I gained nothing. I really did. It is quite a shame that I don't know the difference between doing the hard work the Guide of the Fallen did and just being like, oh, cool, thanks. Oh, nice gun. You know. Dine Wen. My question this week is regarding cheating in games. Here we go. Back in the days of PS1 and PS2, Game Shark was still a thing. For me personally, I would use this opportunity to replay long RPGs like Final Fantasy X or 12 after I had already beaten it the first time. My default cheat. Cheating memories. I remember finishing Super Ghouls and Ghosts because of cheats. There was no way in hell I was beating Super Ghouls and Ghosts. And it wasn't even like an invincibility cheat or something. I think it just literally sent you to the last boss of the game. So I still had to beat that boss. I still was, faced that challenge many, many times, but I couldn't get to that boss for so many reasons. Super Ghouls and Ghosts, such a brutally hard game. Die continues, would always be max gold as a minimum to save time on that type of grinding and to make the start of the game a little easier. This is not really a thing anymore on console. Do you feel people in general don't care or don't want it in games? The closest thing today would be PC mods, or I think GTA 5 still has some cheats, so does Red Dead Redemption 2. You can do like summon a tank. What's your opinion on cheats? Cheats rule. It's been interesting cheats going away, yeah, because I don't know. Maybe they're hard to implement. Maybe it was just kind of done because developers and just thought they were fun, and then over time they got old or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. I think cheats maybe evolved into Easter eggs. I think cheats maybe evolved into you like unlocking modes and stuff like New Game Plus. I think that's kind of like what facilitates like your desire to cheat and experiment in the world. But yeah, cheats are super fun. And somebody asked me, I tweeted out recently where they said, like, what are your, this is a totally personal question. I don't know what this is in business. I'm sorry. I'll get through this really quickly. But they asked if I had cheated. And I said, yeah, in every real-time strategy game I've ever played. Galactic Battlegrounds for Star Wars, Warcraft 3, Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, StarCraft 1. I didn't cheat StarCraft 2. That's a lie. Yeah, I played through Wings of Liberty and its 2 follow-ups. No cheats on that. But StarCraft 1 cheated all over the place. I remember there were comments on the Warcraft when we did the Warcraft retrospective, and people were like, "Wait a minute, you have way more gold than you could have had. Did you use cheats?" And it's like, you bet your ass we used cheats for the Warcraft retrospective. We're not reviewing this game. We're just talking about features and stuff. We cheated like crazy doing that to get it done, to get all that footage. But yeah, cheats rule. I was a Game Genie guy. I did not go as far as Game Shark. But Game Genie on the NES and SNES, like crazy pants. Morgan Mohala, last episode you mentioned that sometimes Huber hits a wall for inspiration. I imagine this happens with many of the allies at some point because of all the great and creative content that is produced. One of my classic blind spots is Don't Skip. That's a show I would like to be producing more episodes of, and I don't know. It would seem like such an obvious thing for me to tell you, hey, don't skip this thing, but I have no ideas. Or it's hard for me to come up with ideas that I think will be worthy of an episode. In the past, several allies from the community have advocated for an EZA community suggestion box, myself included, and was even once written down as a takeaway. I put it as a takeaway for this episode as well. My question is, why hasn't it happened? This could be as simple as setting up an email for taking suggestions. EZA would still retain complete creative control. It would serve as a reserve of ideas for more frequently produced shows. It would be a new way to engage with the community and encourage community participation. And if you never need it, then it doesn't hurt anything. I think it does. I think if we have a community box that we never use, that hurts. I think our community would be like, I'm going to stop doing that, I guess, if you're not like taking any of those suggestions. So I don't think it's something we could like set and forget. I think it's something that we would have to be directly engaged in. We would have to take suggestions from it, and yeah, it's a fine line. It's interesting. I'll get to it in a second. I know that you said before to try and reach out, to the allies individually on social media, but this is very inconsistent as some of the allies adopt media blackouts for upcoming games and movies. Would you consider a more professionally structured way of accepting community suggestions, or should we give up on letting you know what we are interested to see from you and just trust in your process? Never give up, never surrender when it comes to letting us know the stuff that you want us to be doing. I very rarely make promises on stuff that we will do based on community suggestions, but I think this works best hand in hand with someone who is directly and being paid to directly manage our community. Therefore, they can manage things again, like the Q&A, like showcase, like stuff that we do, hurriedly because we're trying to maximize the time that we spend on all sorts of stuff that we produce. And I think one of the things, Morgan, that I think you have to realize is when I talk about like writer's block or, Huber hitting a wall for inspiration, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have suggestions. That doesn't mean that he doesn't know what people might expect or want him to do with an episode. He's just not feeling it. And I think that's where the line that we found with the Tuesday Night Group Stream suggestions is there were times when people would suggest a stream and we were like, like that doesn't sound fun to us. No offense to the people leaving suggestions, like even if like I know I suggested something one time that it looked like you guys weren't having a lot of fun doing. And so then we realized that was a mistake. Group streams should be something that we come up with, that we are excited about. There's lots of back and forth when it comes to group stream ideas. We did Takeshi's challenge for the last one, and that was a challenge in itself for Ben to get the game running. And so we were kind of on pins and needles, like, is it going to work? Should we do something? And so there's always the idea that we're going to do, the 4 ideas that we could do aside from that, and then the 20 ideas behind that people have suggested randomly. There's always Jackbox, and so it's not a matter of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's a matter of, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what would be the best idea. And certainly a suggestion box is not going to, make that clear. That needs to be a decision that we make. So a suggestion box would add more suggestions to, obviously create a system. I just don't think we're equipped right now. We're necessarily built or planning to be able to facilitate something like that. Because if we do put a suggestion box that is not being drawn upon on a regular basis, I do think that is insulting in a way, I think, to our community, to be like, here, be quiet, send it there. It just kind of seems like, go in your room, and it doesn't give me good vibes. I would want that to be a part of a program, something that like we actually do answer these things. 2 more business questions. Tahitian Warrior, I was thinking for a way for EZA to replay some of the best past streams, like Better Stuff for E3 2018, maybe even marathons, streams or YouTube shows on the main EZA Twitch channel without affecting your video archive and live notifications. Kristen and Mr. Blood told me you can only rerun recent streams, but anything older than 2 months is not possible. What if you'd upload a couple of legendary EZA streams back as premiere videos on an alternate EZA Twitch channel? Whoa. You would host that secondary channel on your main channel for us to enjoy with chat. It doesn't have to be 24/7, but maybe once, twice a month or something as a special event, like your rerun Wednesdays, or when EZA has downtime during holidays, or anytime you feel. The pros, you won't be messing up with your current Twitch video archives because you re-up them on a dedicated secondary channel. The cons, you need mods, to select some of the best legendary EZA streams and download, re-up them on that alt channel once in a while. It can't all just be mods because there has to be a tier, a hierarchy. And so there has to be somebody moderating the moderators. And not all of us have time to do that right now. I think you would benefit from this. As you know, EZA Twitch chat is very active, even when the channel is offline. There are many reasons we've talked about having separate Twitch channels and separate YouTube channels. And so that is an interesting idea. I will register it as that. I will log that as an interesting, fascinating idea, Tahitian Warrior. I know Bloodworth, who manages a lot of this stuff, primarily are, there he is. Yeah, I don't think an extra Twitch channel is the way to go about it. I don't think either, Blood, off the top of my head, but it is an interesting idea. And Tahitian Warrior, I want you to know that is an interesting idea, and I will remember that you had that idea. I think I would lean on Daniel Bloodworth more than anyone, as we all currently do, to manage a lot of that stuff when it gets posted and when it gets moved to other channels. But he snuck ahead of me the other day. What was it, Blood, that you wrote a description for? I was like, I'm like, here's the description. And Blood's like, I already wrote one. And I'm like, oh, I thought I was being helpful. Blood's like, haha, you got to get up early in the morning to out description Daniel Bloodworth. Gabriel Roy, I was wondering what you consider EZA's gaming blind spots. What genres, platforms, or specific games do you think you guys could cover better, more thoroughly, whatever? I, for instance, have a huge blind spot for anything on PC and a console-only guy. In spite of my love for strategy games, shout out to Frostpunk. Frostpunk is a very different game, coming to console later this year. Twitch reruns used to let us include highlights, so hopefully that function will return. Yes. And again, it's just something I don't want to like do a one-off thing of. I want that to be a part of an initiative, which I bet sounds frustrating. As a viewer, I'd be like, God, you and your initiatives, Jones. Man, just like, what an excuse never to do anything. But yeah, I love the sports, football, sports. Sports, big time. Yeah, Huber reviews a baseball game every now and then, and maybe one day we'll bring, Matt Blair back to talk about NHL. But yeah, 9 dudes. None of us are into sports games. Some of us are into sports. None of us are really into sports games that much that want to review them. So there you go. Apologies to anybody who's into sports. I'm glad it's like a clean break at least. It's just like we just don't. People are like, "Where's that ECA Madden review?" It's like not gonna happen. Esports, not only sports but esports. Definitely a blind spot. Something that we don't cover as much, something we don't talk about as much. Shout out to Ben Moore and Kyle Bossman, who I believe are on like the forefront of that, who definitely pay attention to those things, know different team names, and know shifts that are happening. PC I think is a bit of a blind spot in terms of streaming. We don't stream from PC a lot, at least in the studio. Mobile is a huge blind spot, one that I tried to pick up the pieces and am ashamed of my words and deeds in my efforts to. I had a stream called Brandon Go that I've done like 4 episodes of. I'd love to cover more mobile stuff because mobile isn't necessary. It's a big market, and it isn't necessarily something that like our allies would be like, finally at last mobile. But there's just some interesting stuff, man. There's some really fun. Florence is a really imaginative, fun game, and I think there's conversations to be had about mobile. There's fun stuff going on, and like Animal Crossing, like the whatever Dr. Mario is going to be like. It'd be fun to stream that when it first comes out. Damiani currently has my little doohickey that I use to plug my iPhone into Elgato. But mobile is definitely a blind spot. I think indie games in general is a blind spot. VR is a blind spot. Shout out to Daniel Bloodworth for reviewing Falcon Age. A lot of VR games I didn't review. I was going to, their previous game, a lot of the developers of Falcon Age worked on Dino Frontier, and I captured all of Dino Frontier and then just never wrote a script and produced a video. The height of laziness. So yeah, those are some. There you go. Time to move on to personal questions. But there's business, everybody. A lot of good business thoughts. A lot of, again, I think we're in. It sucks that E3 is coming up so close because I don't think we can really give this conversation the attention that it deserves right now. But I think a lot of people are like, I need a good chunky goal to look forward to. I need that studio-esque vision for the future of this company. And the frustrating thing is it doesn't mean that there aren't many, many, many visions over the future of this company. It's just not all of them translate into Patreon goals. Not all of them translate into promises. Not all of them translate into something that we know we can commit to in the same way that a studio does. And so that's why that's tricky. That's why we haven't really, come out that, and we're still changing stuff in the studio. Like Damiani's like, hey, this shelf for reaction shots here. Like we're still kind of figuring some of that stuff out. So hopefully that there is a balance of new stuff, that you do see us, being excited because morale is high currently at Easy Allies. We just love this studio so much, and we love the way that we're using it. Apologies, we're not using it in ways that people had anticipated. And apologies that there currently is only one goal that we are moving toward. It is a big goal, and I will communicate more what that goal means for Easy Allies in the future. But personal questions. Let's get personal. I'm going to take a very personal long sip of this smoothie right now. Personal questions. Discarded Digit. Can you describe your ideal pitch for a Batman Beyond video game? Mobility, baby. One of my biggest pitches for Batman right now, a big goal. Can we get a hint as to what it is? There's no hint, Case in point, an employee. There's a big goal. Like, ooh, community manager, 60K. I don't want to have a community manager be a goal. I don't want a human being to be a goal. I don't want us to dip below a number on Patreon and be like, well, you're fired. It's so just nothing fits into that diagram right now. In a way that all of the allies agree on, all of the allies are comfortable with. So there you go. There's my Batman Beyond video game. Michelle Jackson, no. Batman needs to be smaller. Make Batman smaller. The Arkham games are really good. Batman, so big. Big Batman. Batman too big. Batman small. Shrink him down. Make the city bigger. What's cool about Batman Beyond is if you do it in that style, you could kind of do like Crackdown 3, you know, but look good. And, you know, have a day-night system that actually does night and not just like blue day. Enough of this blue day games. And there's a lot of open world games that are like, and now it's nighttime. It's blue. Like Assassin's Creed Odyssey is so gorgeous, but the nights are just like, and now it's blue. And you're like, no, it would be dark. It would be black. It wouldn't be blue. Like I would not see anything if I don't have a torch, you know, like that's nighttime. Shout out to Red Dead. But the darkest of nights, you know, and obviously in any Batman game, if we're going to keep making Batman games, I hunger. We got a little tease of it in the Arkham series, but I hunger for the manual option to become Bruce Wayne whenever I want. And in the case of Batman Beyond Terry McGinnis, anytime I want, any mission for whatever reason, I want to be Terry for this. See what happens. You know, I want to like walk around Gotham as Terry and just, you know, go on a date with my girlfriend, see what's going on. But yeah, because of how much he moves around, I would love if it was more, if you just had a smaller character so that when you were flying through the open world, it was more of a wide city perspective and not just like the Cape. Like I can't see Gotham, like so much Batman in frame. And also the thing that's fun about Batman Beyond is, as much as I love those Arkham games, masterpieces, all of them. Actually, no, we just talked about defining masterpieces, so they're all very good. Maybe that first game is a masterpiece because what a original, unusual Batman game. Kudos to somebody who can be that inventive with the franchise that's been pumping out media for that long. But it was buff Batman, and Batman should be muscular, but it was like linebacker Batman. You know, it was just like 6'6", 320 pounds. So I'm Batman. You know, like it's one way to take it. That's what's fun about Batman Beyond is he's like a little more slender, obviously younger, kind of more of a Nightwing vibe. But yeah, that would be my big thing is shrink Batman down. Let me see more of the world and less of the bat. Michelle Jackson. Recently, I've decided to get back into singing musical theater after about 4 years off. That's awesome. I didn't know you. I don't know if I knew if you did that. I've decided to sing songs from video games because I feel less nervous in auditions when the director has probably never heard the song I'm singing before, and it can't judge me against the original. Excellent idea. It's the worst when you go into a musical audition and you start singing something and you see them go, and you're like, oh damn it! Now they're just listening to the CD in their head. That's why you got to be better than the original, Michelle. You got to be better. What are some good video game audition songs? I've already used Snake Eater and Whims of Fate from Persona 5. Don't worry about the vocal range. I usually adjust songs to suit me anyways. Badass. Michelle, we get to see a lot of stuff that you work on here at Easy Allies, and I don't think enough credit goes to the fact that you can just write music and stuff. You're like, Michelle's like, yeah, I'm just also like very musically talented. But anyway, I'm also like developing games and stuff, and I'm also writing the story and because that's awesome. The shout out to Jonathan Green, who is my pianist at the our 3 Easy Allies anniversary concerts. And when I tell Jonathan, I'm like, hey, can we change the key on this? He's like, really? He's like, that would take a bit. I couldn't just do that right now. I would have to like write up a whole new thing of sheet music and basically like rewrite the song a little bit. Something in my eye. Yeah. I'm just going to give you one recommendation because this is a curveball. I don't know. Still Alive, I guess. Still Alive is kind of tame and a little silly. And, if you audition for a musical with it, people might be like, Black Mesa? Was it Black? Do you have Black Mesas? Would anybody? Black Mesa? But I really liked, I think one of my favorite songs to sing over the video game songs that I have sung at the anniversary was Melodies of Life from Final Fantasy IX. A lot of the songs that I've sung have been intentionally weird to sing in the style that I'm doing, where Melodies of Life fit very much into a ballad, into a, something that you would, see some kind of sweaty performer in a tux sing in some like sleazy bar. Or a wonderfully beautiful person singing, for auditioning for a musical. But So what I do whenever I would prepare for those concerts, I'd be driving around and just singing. So Devil Trigger was just again and again and again and again to get it like in my brain. And now it's really hard to get out of my brain. And so I'd sing these songs a lot, and I just really liked singing Melodies of Life. Every time I would sing that, I'd be like, God, this is a beautiful song. And I knew that I was going to sing it comedically. I wanted to sing it and get laughs if I could, but there were some times when I would sing in a rehearsal where I would sing it. I would sing it, as if I was at like some, Final Fantasy concert or something. Sing the God of War 2018 main theme. That'll get their attention. So that's Daniel Bloodworth with his 2 cents on what you should sing. And if I think of more in the future, I'll let you know, but it's a fun question. Aaron Nichols, in light of Schreier's extensive Anthem article, we've seen renewed discussion of the toxic work culture in the games industry. I think all of us gaming fans have long been tacitly accepting of the mistreatment of the human beings who create our games. However, of the 9 allies, you have been the most explicit in this regard, like saying that Red Dead Redemption was so good that it was even worth if, quote, some developers lost years of their lives. Okay, I think we need a broader quote there. I think that was taken a little out of context, that I was like, you suffered tough. I want my cowboy game. I definitely do not want to come across that way due to stress and overwork. I want you to defend this position. To me, this line of thinking is reminiscent of the way people defend the institution of slavery today, i.e. that slavery brought us a globally prominent American economy and cheap textiles. And since we like those things, slavery actually wasn't that bad. At what point does the quality or utility of a product override the immorality of subjugating the workers that create said product? When it breaks the law, and that's when we'll get to it. How moral is it to celebrate media, Red Dead, companies, BioWare, Apple, and auteurs, Kubrick, Tarantino, that create their works through exploitative practices and causing large-scale suffering for those in their employ? Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. First of all, slavery's bad. Let's start there. I think we can kind of shift aside that part of the conversation. I think it comes because I think there's 2 conversations. You're either having the conversation about it or you're having a conversation about the people affected by it. So if I'm having a conversation about work practices at Rockstar or these other companies, I'm gonna be like, yes, there should be a developers guild. Yes, people should be allowed to have maternity leave and go on vacation and not have to leave Anthem because they are physically stressed, like beyond belief. Like these things shouldn't happen. And yes, we should explore the possibility of passing laws that say no, that these things can't happen. If you were to, Amanda works on set a lot. Amanda was out of town working on a set for a show that's coming up. Bam, she booked a show. There are absolutely no nonsense on set for these things. They have safety meetings, even if they're doing the most rudimentary of special effects or props. They have. I remember one of my favorite Amanda Troop production memories was this lady came by one time and Amanda was talking to me and her mom. Her mom came into town. This is when she was working for Chevrolet. She was in a series of Chevy spots, and this lady came by and she was like, "We're ready for you," to Amanda. And Amanda was like, "Oh," and she was talking to us. And Amanda turned to me and I expected her to be like, "Okay, well, let's finish our conversation, but then I have to leave." She turned to me, smiled, and walked away because that lady was like, "We're ready for you right now." And they was like, "Okay, cool, I gotta go," and like they run a very tight ship. They have a very tight schedule. These are industries. One of the greatest burns of all time when Bandersnatch came out on Netflix. And everyone was discussing, is this a TV show or is it a game? And somebody tweeted out, I can't remember who it was, that said, easy, it's a TV show because the people who made this are in a union. And I was like, oh, union. Yeah, I think I said guild earlier. What I meant was union. And it was like, touche. Yeah, is definitely a TV show. This was managed in a completely different way than a game would have been managed. And so I think what you're talking about is when you talk about the companies and the properties and not this discussion. When does this discussion come back into it? And it's tricky because I am on that fine line of like, would I sacrifice Red Dead Redemption 2 to make those people happier? Yes. That worked on that game? Yes. If that got delayed and that meant that they could all take a nap and then, tend to their family and friends and their personal life and be happy about their jobs and happy about their company? Yes. Should Anthem have been delayed considerably? Yes. Or potentially canceled? Yes. But But it's tricky because these companies aren't very open about this. So we do have to get this like investigative reporting. Like we never really did get a straight answer of like how Rockstar works. And I'm not saying that it seems like they work fine. It does not. It seems like things are very, there are issues massively that need to be addressed within that company. But because we don't have the union, we don't have these laws passed, they're not technically breaking the law. They're not technically like, they're not going to court. We're not watching depositions drop. It's just kind of like, we'll say on social media, yeah, it's important to us. Or, oh, you hear that, Casey Hudson brought people together at BioWare and said this is an issue. Like all this is hearsay. All of this is just being like, yeah, we're working on it. And so it's tough. It's like, it sounds like progress is being made, but we don't have receipts. We don't have proof that this stuff is happening. And, the even scarier thing to think about in terms of people being overworked is what don't we know? What companies do have this problem? Does Nintendo have this problem? Is there any way we would ever know that like Retro was like slaving over Metroid Prime, 4? Like, I don't know. Like, if it was, would that be only communicated to one Japanese magazine and then that's not translated in English? And so our country just misses it. Like there's so much difficulty in communicating exactly what's happening and exactly like, even when you have people leave companies, they can't say their names. And so I had a friend of a friend that worked for this company and he said this. And so, long story short, what I try to do now, and, again, being called out, I hope I'm doing an okay job of this. And I think more at this stage in my career and the stage in the industry, I'm more aware of this than I have ever been in my entire life. But I try, and apologies if at one point I brought it up flippantly. I at least try to bring it up, like when we talk about something or whenever I talk about the extent of how much was added to Red Dead. I get that little pit in my stomach that's like at the cost of people's sanity and health and well-being and careers somewhat. When you hear about people not being mentioned in the credits that worked on a game because they weren't at the company at the time the game launched, it's ridiculous. It's like, so it's frustrating to hear these things. And I just want them to keep being brought up in the conversation because I think that's the greatest win that an evil company or a company that, clearly does not care enough about the well-being of their employees. I think that's like the big greatest win for them is that like they all forgot, like by the time Grand Theft Auto 6 gets announced, we'll be like, yay, Rockstar. And you'd be like, what about Rockstar's bad business practices? And we're like, what? So I don't want to forget that we were having these conversations, but as someone, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to be taking these companies to court. I'm certainly excited about things because even if you have these companies where potentially people can be, misrepresented or mistreated at these companies, is it the, adding insult to injury, like salt in the wound for it to be like, there, you got fired, you got shamed, everyone hates the company that you work for, and none of us are going to play your game. And it's just like, well, great. It's like, at least you can enjoy this thing that I worked on really hard. But it's tricky. I mean, there's sometimes at Easy Allies where I think like, man, I'm a hypocrite, like here I'm saying that they shouldn't be doing that and shouldn't be pushing themselves. And like, I was up until 2:30 a.m., and I woke up at 8, to do this. And so it's like, oops, like I'm not really treating myself that great when it comes to stuff. And when you deal with Easy Allies, it's not a directive. That's just on me. That's just me personally trying to figure out how much work I should do to put things together. You see people that travel a lot, and they're just exhausted because they're traveling all over the place and they never really get breaks. I know we had this crazy con season where we went like right from, I know it seems I'm going all over the place, but like this is where my head is at when I think about these things. You want to know what I'm thinking? Personal questions. This is where my head is at. I think it was GDC into PAX East was like, it's like the next week. So like some people didn't even go home. So that like some people, developers were just like, well, I'm just going to go to Boston now and I'll just set up stuff there. And some people like Greg Miller were home for like a day. They like came home and was like, what's up, Porty? All right, I'm out. And then, and so is that good? Is that exciting? Is it like, oh, it's fun because you're going to all these events, but it's like, yeah, I got the flu. What do I do now? And it's like, well, don't go to, PAX East if you have the flu, I guess. And I think this is this new kind of era that we're moving in games. This is a discussion we're having in games that is overdue, that I think we should always be bringing up whenever we're talking about this, specifically whenever we're talking about how much work was produced. I mean, it's interesting. We're talking about, adding easy modes to games. A lot of people arguing that like developers should add more options and more modes and more difficulty things, and they should set more stuff in more game. And it's like, so work harder and then delay the game. So because they're adding more, Should they lose sleep over this, or when should the game come out now if they're adding these modes? You know, it's like it's the idea of companies working too hard or working their employees too hard seems to kind of butt up against like a lot of stuff, a lot of different issues when we praise games, when we're excited about things, when we talk about Respawn having all of this incredible pressure on them to save, you know, the Star Wars video games as we know it, you know, save EA from just like botching one Star Wars gaming announcement after another. All of this is pressure. All of this is expectations. We graded like the announcement of Fallen Order. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of times where we put a really intense scrutiny onto companies, and you know, you could of course spin I think any one of those interactions into being like, what an incredibly negative portrayal of this company. You know, who are you to ask them to do anything if clearly they need to work less, clearly they need to take care of themselves more. So I just want to constantly be talking about it. I never want to bring something, you know, maybe there's sometimes where I don't necessarily bring it up because I don't want to, if I'm talking on a panel, I don't want to steer the conversation in that direction. It's always in the back of my mind. I'm always trying to watch what I say in terms of things that I enjoy that come from projects that hurt people or companies that hurt people. Allegedly. It just sucks, man. It just, you know, once we take somebody to court, that'll be a different story. Ulf himself, check out the game Pathway. It's basically an Indiana Jones strategy RPG. I did. The thing about Pathway is it looked very tactics oriented, and I am just bad. I'm simply bad at tactics. Case in point, XCOM is a game that I realize is great. XCOM 1 and 2. Like those are great games. I'm just terrible at them, and they make me so nervous. I hate, and I know you can quick save, you know, again, cheat, nothing earned. But just whenever you play a level where I'm like, okay, I'll move this guy over here, and then I'll do this, and then set the little danger. Okay, I took care of that, and then I move this over here, and then this over here, and then like this door will open up, and I'm like, I have nobody over there. I didn't know that. Restart. You know, like that's exhausting to me. Like it doesn't mean I'm not having fun, but I don't naturally gravitate toward those types of games. Specifically, like, you know, the Fire Emblems. You know, like because it stresses me out. Bobby Wasabi, following up with the topic of how your education at Emerson helped you with your work in the games industry, how valuable is that education compared to the price? Do you think going to college is necessary to land a good job at a respected game site or organization? That's a scary question to answer. I can't really. I can't tell you what's worth the price for what, I mean, man, who knows? Who knows what social standing you're coming from, who knows what friends you have in the industry, who knows what maybe family connections that you have, who knows what your raw innate talent is, you know, who knows if you're going to make a game by yourself and then that game's going to blow up and all you really needed to do was learn if you have a good work ethic, all you really need to do is read a couple of books and learn this. All you need to do, and learn this tech, you know, learn Unity, learn Unreal, learn these, you know, layers and layers of code that go into making these games. You know, case in point, what Michelle is doing. Like, I don't know what Michelle Jackson seems to be able to write music and draw characters and code games and create stories. And, you know, like there doesn't seem to be any sort of facet of RPG making that Michelle isn't kind of conquered in one way or another. How did Michelle get to that point? I don't know. How much education has Michelle had in any of those one arenas? It's tricky for me also because so much of my knowledge that I took from Emerson was hands-on, was not necessarily me sitting in a class being like, Citizen Kane, yes, but was me being like, whoa, a Bolex, whoa, oh, that process film looks terrible. Let me try again. Oh, that looks better. Or like, oh, I need to shoot a 10-minute video. I need actors. Let me call my actor friends. And then, I want to make this thing about these two clowns that are trying to hit on this girl in a park, which is actually a film I made in college. Because how stupid is that? Two clowns like trying to impress this girl. And she's like, I don't like either of you. Leave me alone. So I had some friends and one was my roommate. And just conceptually, the whole planning process of trying to put that together wasn't necessarily something I was taught in that class. It was literally just the absolute like hands-on experience of doing it. And so you have some people, Amanda left college at the end of her sophomore year. She was like, I want to be an actor. I think I'm good. You know, I don't think there's anything in the next 2 years that I'm going to pick up. And she moved out to LA. And sometimes she kind of regrets that. Sometimes she doesn't. There's no way to know if that was like the right decision, much like everything else in this industry. It's really hard to say, that's when people say, like, how do I get involved? It's like, I don't know if you want to follow my path. My path was nuts. My path, Game Trailers wouldn't have happened without John Slusser, who was a family friend. So a lot of times I think back, like, man, what if my brother had never met Adam Slusser and introduced me to his older brother, John, who then ran my company for a couple of years. It's really tough to talk about the benefits of education, specifically because there are so many facets. You could get into PR, you could get into trailer creation, advertising. You could be the next Sean Layden. You could be the next Reggie Fils-Aimé. You could make something like Super Meat Boy or Minecraft. You could just manage a company. You could be the next Randy Pitchford, or John Vignacchi working at Disney on Infinity and then moving on to other companies. Yeah, there's no easy way. There's no easy way to talk about the correct way to get into this industry. And certainly I will never, ever, ever tell anyone that their education is worth it or not, because it is up to you to decide that, which is a scary, stupid thing, but that's just kind of the way it is. Casper Winther Hansen, what is your top 5 favorite Star Wars characters? Top 5 favorite Star Wars characters. Yeah, you can't follow my path. Ha ha, says Daniel Bloodworth. Direct quote from Daniel Bloodworth. Yeah, you can't follow my path. Ha ha. Yoda. Come on. Of everybody. Number 1, absolute number 1, best Star Wars character of all time. Yoda. End of story. Period. Number 2, Chewbacca. Number 2, R2-D2. Number 3, Han Solo. No, number 4. Sorry. Number 1, Yoda. Number 2, Chewbacca. Number 3, R2-D2. Number 4, Han Solo. Number 5, Wicket. What? I thought I'd throw in a curveball at number 5 because, ladies and gentlemen, I was 4 years old when I saw Return of the Jedi for the first time. And Wicket was everything. And the thing about it, I always, because again, I always go by the F word, favorite. Favorite to me means something totally different. When you talk about what's the best, that's one conversation. What's your favorite? Oh, okay, I get to have fun with this. My favorite means what emotionally resonates with me. Wicket emotionally resonated with me. I grew up and everybody was like, ugh, the Ewoks. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah, dude, the Ewoks are stupid. And I was like, the Ewoks rule. What? Dude, the Ewoks are cannibals, man. Like, what are you? They're savage, dude. Like, the Ewoks, you see Ewoks murder dozens of people in that film. Like, that is the music might be peppy and like, yeah, they might have cute faces and stuff. Some of them, there are some freaky looking Ewoks, but, just that moment. I just love that moment so much of Leia being like so exhausted and like, where's my brother? And then just like, oh, hey buddy. And he like comes up like, hey, and then he hears the sound and just like gets all serious. And then like the laser blast hits. I love when he pops back up like, that thing, wow. Just like, what was that? I just thought Wicket was so cool. And I had my own little Wicket. And every time I see Wicket, it makes me happy. I'm actually right now, I have Wicket in my sights in terms of how I am spending my daily currency in Galaxy of Heroes to level up a character. I'm leveling up that Wicket because you need Wicket to, you need a strong Ewok party to unlock C-3PO. And they do a C-3PO event like every 3 months or so. And missed it the last time. I was not ready. And so he is my last 7-star Ewok. He's a little trickier, which is why I haven't gotten him to 7 stars yet. But once I have Wicket to 7 stars, then I'll have 5 7-star Ewoks of my own little Ewok party. I'll build them up. Go Wicket. But Yoda, I mean, Yoda's the greatest, man. Asbo Zapruder, this is going to be a week when I finally ask you about some Rodgers and Hammerstein shows. Nice. But you said a magical word last week, falsettos. It's one of my all-time favorite shows, but I thought I might be too obscure to bring up. Oh, the obscureness? I want it. I want the obscure stuff. If you want to stump me, Asbo, if you want to like give me like thoroughly modern Millie, and they're like, what? Like there's a lot of new stuff that I'm like, don't know. No idea. Even like School of Rock on Broadway. I remember like seeing that like there's like some shot of Times Square and I was like, School of Rock's a musical, really? But yeah, anything after like the year 2000, that's not Hamilton. There are some opening numbers that are objectively better and more important than falsettos, but there isn't one that brings me more joy. Anyway, I'm not even going to throw in any additional shows this week. I just want to hear you talk about falsettos. Although, if you're familiar with another William Finn show, A New Brain, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that as well. Yeah, we're talking about Broadway stuff. Tune out. for the next 5 minutes if you don't care about musicals. Yeah, Falsettos is great. I was a big fan of Falsettos through my brother. He introduced me to March of the Falsettos and then Falsetto Land. Refresher, if you didn't listen to last week and you're curious, what are you talking about? There's a guy named William Finn, wrote a musical called March of the Falsettos about a guy named Marvin who falls in love with a man named Whizzer. But the problem is Marvin is married to Trina and has a son named Jason and has a psychiatrist named Mendel. And he goes to his psychiatrist and says, I'm gay. What do I do about this? I'm married and I have a child. And I love my wife and I love my child. I just can't stay in this family anymore because I want to be true to myself. And this is in the late 80s, maybe the early 90s. And he divorces his wife and gets in a relationship with this guy named Whizzer. What a fun name, Whizzer. Wizzer, Whizzer. And his wife, in frustration, goes to Mendel and ends up, marrying Mendel. Are they just dating? Or are they married? I don't know. And then there's Jason caught up in all this. There's this soon-to-be teenage boy, Jewish boy, who's just like, what do I do with all of this? And so it's a really fun show in that regard because you have this kid. When I did it in college, it wasn't a kid. I mean, we're all kids, really, but he was a college kid, and actually has gone on to be in a bunch of stuff. I don't know if he's ever made it to Broadway, but he works a lot in theater. And then so there's March of the Falsettos, and then they did a sequel to it called Falsetto Land. Both of these were like 1 hour, 10-ish shows, and then they packaged both of them together called that Falsettos. So it's March of the Falsettos, Falsetto Land, into a show called Falsettos. I would listen to it all the time. So when someone was doing Falsetto Land, just the second act in college, I was like, oh, I want to do that. And I got Marvin. I got to play Marvin. And that was fun because it's the only time on stage I've ever played a gay man. I got to smooch a dude a couple of times in a show, and that was fun. It was fun to do it not just in a comedic sense, where it's like, oh, guys kissed. Where it's just like, no, man, he's my boyfriend. Like, that was fun. That was a fun, a fun artistic endeavor to explore. It was interesting too because there are the two gay protagonists, Marvin and Whizzer. And then in the sequel, I don't think they're in March of the Falsettos. I think they only just like show up in Falsetto Land, but they have two lesbian neighbors, and the 4 gay people that were in the musical when I did it were all straight, and our director and stage manager and musical director and producer were all gay. And so there's nothing like being a straight man kissing a straight man in front of 4 gay men. That's yeah, haven't done that since. But Falsettos is great. I actually just went back, Asbo, when I was building furniture in the studio last weekend. People are talking about Star Wars and stuff in chat. I listened to Falsetto Land again. I went back and listened to that and was like, oh, I forgot how goofy this is. It's a very... all the characters in the show are very over the top, very energetic, very expressive, and very self-deprecating. And it's a very, very silly show, a lot sillier than I remembered it being. But then it just cripples you with drama. Like it just boom, like you just get hit like right in the gut. That might not have been the kindest word to use, but yeah, it's a very emotional show. Obviously, it spoilers, second act doesn't end well for a lot of characters. And actually, that brings me to one of my proudest moments on stage. It's like a moment that I will always remember because when I was in college, I was a film major for most of the time. I was an acting major the first semester, and then I switched over to film. But I still did shows, and I did mostly musicals, but I did a couple stage plays, and so a lot of people didn't know me, and a lot of people in musical theater that would go, because there were a lot of people outside of the school, a lot of people had graduated that still lived in Boston, and they would come see shows, and they were involved in the musical theater program, and there was a lot of like, who the hell is this guy? Like, I don't see this guy in class, I don't see him in other shows, like, who's this random Brandon Jones guy that shows up as like the lead, and what's going on? And so it was fun to like impress people. It was fun to just come in and be like, I'm a film major, bye, they just vanish. And like, so I showed up in what was a lot of people's favorite shows. Obviously, I not only have, several gay men in the crew, I guess, if you will, or the production of the show, but obviously in the audience. So here I am performing, as a gay man and probably in front of many gay men. And I hope I do this well. I hope I pull this off. I hope I'm believable. And there's a very sad moment that happens at the end of the second act, or at the end of our show, at the end of Falsetto Land, or the second act of Falsettos. And I sing a very sad song. And I did the show twice, back to back. We had like a 7 performance and a 9 performance, I think. And in the second performance,
I nailed it, and I could feel it happening near the end of the song. I think well, it'll give away what happens at the end of that show, but I don't know if Asbo cares or if anybody cares about show spoilers. But my friend is the last line that I sing in that show, and I got choked up and I started sobbing. And it's Amanda can do this much better than I can. I don't know if I can do it anymore because I haven't acted in a really long time on stage, but beyond singing silly songs. But harnessing the power of tears is a talent, and I just happened to do it. I just happened to get in the moment, and what happens is the whole cast comes in and swarms around me. Spoilers, you can kind of guess what happens, but I'm sad and everyone's there, and they come around and they give me a hug, and I'll never forget the look on their faces when they came around and they were like, "Oh, we're acting." And I turned to them and I was just bawling, face red. And they were just like, "Whoa." And I remember like the kid who played my son looked up at me and I just like grabbed him really close and gave him a hug. And I remember they were like, "Whoa, Jones brought it." And I had a lot of really close friends that came to see that second show. And they came up to me afterwards and were like, "Wow." And I was like, "Yeah, that's right." Like I just happened to tap into the tear ducts just right in the right moment, and then realize like, oh, it's funny because it's like when you go back, it's kind of like lifting weights. It's like if you pause for a second, now it's impossible, so it's like if you don't, let that wave crash, if you don't open the floodgates, then it's tough to get back to that emotional moment. So I kind of had to be like, all right, full speed ahead, let's cry. There's a really great scene in Barry that's kind of like this. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep. But and A New Brain is fun. My friend Nicole Gendreau, who I don't know if she's still doing stuff in theater, was in the original, not the original like cast, but the first touring cast. The first time A New Brain was performed anywhere else in the United States, she was in that cast. And I remember she told me about New Brain, and she was like, "There's a role in this play that you should," not the main guy, but his boyfriend sings this song. It's one of my favorite songs to sing. I'd rather be sailing, yes I would. Sex is good, but I'd rather be sailing. It's a fun song. Yeah, New Brain's great. I only saw it once, so there's a lot of it's fuzzy. But literally a game. I think he has like an aneurysm or something, or he has an issue with his brain, and he's a creative guy, and so he's just dealing with like, I'm gonna have this surgery. Am I gonna survive it? What does this mean for me as a person to have this issue with my brain? Philip Hu, do you as an older gamer have any kind of hand or wrist pain when playing an intense game like Spider-Man or Kingdom Hearts 3? Is Kingdom Hearts 3 intense? I have been dealing with tendinitis and arthritis, and I feel like I'm being left behind. I would love to play Sekiro, but I worry that it will end up when I played Arkham Knight, 1 week of fun and paying for it with 1 month of constant pain. I've seen a doctor, but I'm asking advice from you who's a year older than my 39 years. Yeah. To me, it's not a particular type of game. It's an endurance test. It's like when we do Easy Living, or when I'll stream something. Actually, what happens whenever I haven't streamed a game in a while, just me, but like my shoulders get crazy. It's kind of happening now. Where like I don't go like this, but like I'm not like this the whole time either. It just kind of like creeps. I kind of like live here. It's a bad place with the shoulders. So like my neck gets a lot more sore when I stream. But there was a game that hurt. I can't remember, and it wasn't thankfully because of the conditions that you're facing with. And man, I'm sorry. You have an out for Sekiro for sure. Any of the Sekiro arguments you're seeing online, be like, I cannot be a part of this because I can't even. Yeah, I will pay for it. But it's just when I like for review or something. I think maybe Red Dead, I got a little sore just because I would play for like 10 hours straight, and not like straight. Like I would pause to eat food, but like 10 hours out of a day playing one specific game, doing one specific pattern, I can definitely start to feel it. And I like to do this a lot. I like to crack my knuckles, which is a bad idea. So I'm sure I will pay for it one of these days. But yeah, sorry I don't have any strong medical advice. One thing that I did recently that wasn't like a joint pain thing, but I was installing so much furniture that I kept like screwing a flathead or a Phillips head screwdriver just manually. I didn't use the drill because I'm an idiot, and because of pride. And I would my hands would get so red that I would open up the freezer in the studio and just put my hands in the freezer and be like, ah. So Cold can always help, can sometimes help with pain, and just the inflammation that you get in your hands. Kasim Mahmood. Over the last few years, it seems like I've developed a bit of a stutter. Sometimes it's not bad. Other times it feels debilitating. I plan on seeing a doctor about it soon, but as someone who uses his voice for a living, do you have any tips? Do you think vocal training or speech therapy would help? Yes. Again, it's tough to get 2 medical questions back to back. I'm not a doctor. Y2 Kyle 89 suggested people try out zinc when they have colds, and we got a message from someone who's like, don't! It's not medically founded at all. Stop giving medical advice. We were like, you're probably right. You probably shouldn't do that. So I don't want to give medical advice, but yeah, I mean, let me just say this. If you think vocal training or speech therapy might help, don't be afraid. It sounds like cracking knuckles doesn't actually do anything. Not that I'm a doctor, says Bloodworth. Of course, yeah. Dr. Bloodworth. Brandon's cracking his knuckles. Don't be afraid to do it. Don't, trying to get caught up in any kind of stigmas of like, is this bad that I have to do vocal training? Is this bad that I have to do speech therapy? I've done vocal training for lots of different ways. I've done vocal training for singing. I've done vocal training for speech. I've done vocal training not only for speech in terms of enunciating, but for making speeches. I've taken speech classes on like how to, illustrate a speech and how to, organize your thoughts and how to communicate things to people. It's what I always try to tell the guys whenever they try to get good at these things is just practice makes perfect. I think whenever they write scripts, it's always good to read them out loud to themselves and not just like over the last few years, it seems like I've developed a bit of a stutter, like actually, speak through it. And if you find yourself in another thing too, another little bit of advice, because I think what I can help you with more, or where I want to steer my advice is more for you just being confident and feeling okay about yourself, that this is fine, that you're having this issue, that there are people out there who can help you and you should seek, the help that you feel that you need. But if you feel that you're in a situation where you can't communicate to people or you're nervous about communicating to people, take your time. I talk really fast. I don't know if you've noticed that. No one's in here to tell me to shut up. Like I've no like buffer here. I got Bloodworth, I guess, but like whenever I'm left to my own devices and I talk for a really long time, I talk super fast. And so it's always good to just slow down a little bit. It's always fine. I think people appreciate that more than anything when you take your time, to say something the way that you want to say it. So feel free to take your time. And I hope that works out for you. That's got to be frustrating. I would be scared if that happened to me in terms of how that would affect my job. I can't imagine something like that. So I just hope you have the self-confidence, and I hope you, I just want to pump you full of tons of self-worth that you deserve to get that fixed, and you deserve to have all the help in the world. Cesar Villa, first Terminator 2 and now Goonies. I said I have some issues with Goonies in the last Cup of Jones. Please, just stay away from Back to the Future. Pretty please. Back to the Future rules. Nothing wrong with Back to the Future. There's plenty wrong with Back to the Future just because it's a time travel movie and a lot of it doesn't make sense. Specifically Back to the Future 2, when like Biff comes back from the time period that he created to the other time period, and you're like, what? That doesn't work, right? Yeah, my only issue with Back to the Future is when he goes and sees the DeLorean when he sees himself go back to the future at the end of the movie, it's like the whole thing takes place in half the time. And I remember even as a kid being like, wait, what? And I went back and watched that scene, and I didn't I was too young to understand like narrative jumps. That's like, it's okay. You can have something happen quick. And as long as you understand what's happening, it doesn't matter if we like minute by minute follow the exact rules of how things play out. But when like Marty runs up and is like, no, he's like gonna say no, and then he hears himself say it, like from the moment that Doc gets shot to when he goes back, it takes like 15 seconds. And I was like, it took much longer at the beginning of the movie. But that's it. That's all I'll say. Everything else about Back to the Future is great. Shout out to Alan Silvestri, who did the score of all 3 films in that trilogy and also did Predator. And I met, the old ride at Universal. I missed that ride. That ride was great. You'll have to bump him. Ian Gragnolotti, I have a personal question for you. With 2.5 weeks at the time of this writing until Endgame, I'm curious what your top 5 MCU movies are. Mine are: number 1, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Possibly my most unpopular opinion of all time is that I prefer Winter Soldier to The Dark Knight. If you're interested, I'll make the case for it in next week's question. Number 2, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Number 3, Captain America: Civil War. Number 4, Avengers: Infinity War. Number 5, Iron Man. Yeah. Yeah. This was interesting. I don't know. It's tough. I'd have to like watch them all again because there's a lot of these that I don't remember. And Winter Soldier's not on my list. I thought Winter Soldier was cool. I think Winter Soldier got talked up too much before I saw it. I think people were like, best MCU movie ever. I was like, whoa, really? Okay, cool, let's do it. And I think Winter Soldier reminds me of Captain Marvel a little bit, where I really like Captain Marvel, but I don't know how many times I'm going to be rewatching Captain Marvel, because I feel like Captain Marvel and Winter Soldier are such pivotal moments. They're moments where the MCU's narrative clearly shifts. I mean, like S.H.I.E.L.D. was affected by that, and S.H.I.E.L.D. has not been affected by many things that have happened in the MCU. And I think it's notable for those moments, but it's the kind of thing like when you see Winter Soldier for the second time, like those moments don't necessarily stand out because you know it. Like those twists, you're like, I wasn't surprised by this anymore. Whereas a lot of the favorites, I mean, a lot of the ones that I really respect and really enjoy at the end of the day are the assemblies, the times where multiple characters got together, because I think at the end of the day, that's the greatest, other than like bringing Ant-Man and Black Panther to silver screens. Whereas like, it's like, we're getting like a Lobo movie with DC, I guess. Like, okay. It's like now we're getting Aquaman and Wonder Woman finally. And like the MCU is just way ahead of them as far as like bringing to light a lot of fun characters. We get a Black Lightning TV show, I guess, at least. So I just think it's so impressive what they've done in the MCU in terms of not only having a through line through all of these crazy movies, but the times where everyone got together, which is why my absolute favorite movie in the MCU is Civil War. And actually, I didn't like Civil War when I first saw it because I loved Civil War, the comic. Specifically, there's some really great moments. I'll spoil one of them for you. But there's a great moment where Captain America fakes that he's going to join he's going to sign. It's not called the Sokovia Accords in the comic books, but he's basically like, okay, fine. And he goes to shake Iron Man's hand and he shorts Iron Man's suit out. He has like a buzzer basically in his hand and like, I love that. It's like an underhanded Cap move. It's so great. And there's just a lot of tragedy in the comic series and so many other characters, because obviously it's a comics. And so they can just bring so much into the Spider-Man arc in the comic books is so much more interesting than the stuff Spider-Man does in Civil War. But I digress. So when I first saw Civil War, I was like, meh, it wasn't like the comics. Meh. And then I ran away. And then it was on Netflix and I watched it like 40 times, just like I've watched Infinity War like 40 times. And I was like, damn, this is really good. This was really, really well done. And I think back to like the first X-Men film. And I love, there's a lot of stuff I like in that movie. I think Ian McKellen is a bizarre choice to play Magneto, but the guy's a damn good actor. And so it's really fun to say, he's like, I want hope. It's like, I will bring you hope, Charles. Like there's so many great moments, but it is also a really silly movie. And I think like case in point, you look at the Wolverine Mystique fight on Ellis Island in X-Men. And it's definitely set up. It's like, here we go. Here's the big Wolverine Mystique fight. And in Civil War, it's like, hey, here's Black Panther and Winter Soldier. They're fighting. Well, that's over. Here's Spider-Man and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Now they're fighting. Now that's over. Here's, Black Panther versus Black Widow versus Cap versus, it's like there's just so many little like, oh, whoop, that was that moment, and the way that they undercut like all of the stuff that happens with Cap and all the stuff that happens with Winter Soldier and having Baron, what's his butt? I don't even remember the bad guy's name in Civil War, but like having him, I talked to some friends that they were like, I was bummed that he was in it because they just kind of threw that character away. And it's like, yeah, but he was in it, like DC isn't going to get even remotely close to having characters that deep show up in these movies. But I was just so impressed by how all it came together. So Zemo, I just thought that was so great, and I just thought it wrapped up so well, and everybody was so good, and the which is why I put it ahead of Infinity War, which is my number 2, because Infinity War is what an achievement. My God, what Infinity War does that Civil War doesn't is there are some jokes in Infinity War that are terrible. There are some jokes in Infinity War. All of Peter Dinklage's performance is just no. Like there's so many moments in that movie where I'm like, I am Groot, I am Steve Rogers. Like, there's a war going on around you. There's a Cap. There's like 500 aliens that are slaughtering people behind you, Cap. Maybe don't joke right now, Cap. Maybe not. And like it's tough with Marvel. It's like, well, you got to joke because it's Marvel. It's like not in that. Give him, he needs the axe. Like Huber and I joke. Like there's just a lot of those moments where I'm like, okay, the scene with the Star-Lord and Thor was just like, oh, I'm doing your voice. It's like, okay, it's like, it's one thing to do Guardians, like, oh, Guardians is funny, and now Guardians is still funny, and now Guardians is still funny. It's like, okay, I completely still while eating chips, like, all right, like Gamora just asked Star-Lord to kill her, like, come on, because it is a very sad movie with a very sad ending, and so I get it. But that's why Civil War just kind of edges it out. I'm doing this purely on nostalgia, but I thought the first Avengers film was amazing. I really like. I especially when you watch all of the films leading up to that and then see Avengers, it's just like, especially if you see like how far Hawkeye has come, how far Black Widow has come, and then like go back and watch Iron Man 2 and like, oh yeah, that's right. Like she's in this. Like they set up all of this stuff knowing that it was going to conclude with Avengers. And the way it like teases Thanos and Loki, and like the way it builds and builds and builds and builds. Like when the portal, when I was in the theaters and the portal opened up and like the rest of those snakes came in, I was like, whoa, I thought this movie was over. I thought we were done. I thought literally we would see the Avengers get together and then we're finished. But like, nope, now they're the Avengers and now they're going to go kick ass. I tend to think humor can be kind of off in a lot of Joss Whedon properties. And like, I thought he balanced that so well. So I really like that. So Avengers is my number 3. Iron Man is got it probably in everybody's top 5. That's my number 4. Number 5, Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that movie is so key, and especially like the payoff that you get in Infinity War to not only have the Guardians show up and be a part of the story, but an integral part of the story. Not only Gamora, but Nebula is critical, and it's cool to see Nebula on the poster for Endgame. Like, yeah. And so it's neat to see not only those characters introduced, but obviously extremely important to the story, but yet kind of feeling like Ant-Man, kind of like these fun offshoots. So I don't know. I'm not like totally happy with that list, but I've talked about it enough. I'm sure it'll change in the future. Moving on. Kerbu. I was hoping to see this appear. I have to be done by 2 p.m. so you can go watch Mysterious Monsters. I was hoping to see this appear in the quickfire portion of Trailer Jones. Any chance for a quick trailer score on the reveal of Cadence of Hyrule? I'm interested to know if you enjoyed how someone else handled being able to debut a Zelda title, or if it was really unremarkable and easy to forget, if it ever happened last month for you. I'll give it an 8. My quick review, just based on memory. 2 things that I thought were really stellar about that review. 3. I think you know what's going on. It conveys it. It gets the point across perfectly. You're like, Crypt of the Necrodancer is now going to be in Hyrule. They created a piece of original music for that. Mwah. Always do that. If you can create a piece of original music for your trailer, for your game, yes. If you're like, no, we're just going to use this music. Be like, okay, what are you going to do with it? Nothing. I'm just going to throw it on there and show some game footage. It's like, okay. And so I really appreciated that. And 3, I think it's like a minute. I think it's like a minute and 15 seconds. It's perfect. It's like whatever length the Cadence of Hyrule trailer is the absolute perfect length for what they were attempting to do. And so whenever I see a trailer that's really brief, it seems like you would say, you're like, is it easy to forget? It's not, because it was so brief, because it was so, it just had the right amount of time to get its point across and to stick it into my head as someone who probably will not play Crypt of the Necrodancer and probably won't play Cadence of Hyrule either. Too many games. Alexander Zirianov, last time you mentioned that you aren't a big fan of puzzles in games. I said I wasn't a big fan of puzzle games specifically. This was a bit surprising since you appear to be smart, observant, patient, and an analytical person who knows a lot and has an excellent memory. Why don't video game puzzles attract you? I think the reason why is because it's like full stop. It's like, it's one thing to play Sekiro and be like, okay, I'm going to try this again. And I know that just that by nature of me trying this again, I am going to get better at it. Am I going to get better at it enough to beat this boss? I don't know. Am I going to finish Sekiro? I haven't finished it. I'm not very far. That game is intimidating. But at least with like combat, I keep thinking, okay, wait, there's something I missed. There's something wrong with my performance that I did not achieve that time. So let me try again. Where with puzzles, I'm just like, I don't know. And then like, I'll stare at the room and be like, yeah, I tried all those things. It's like my brain just stops. It's not like, oh, this was difficult, but I'm at least kind of enjoying the back and forth aspect of it. It's just like, and so I guess for me, for like my temperament with gaming, like that's just kind of dull. I don't want to get stuck in those moments. It's a combination of I'm bored because the game stopped and I feel dumb, and I don't like to feel dumb. It's like you said, like, you seem to be smart. I like to seem that way to myself as well. So I don't like to play games, whereas Amanda loves challenging herself that way. She would not be satisfied by conquering a boss in Sekiro like I would, but she is very satisfied when she, even in something like Hearthstone, which she plays a lot, where she figures out the puzzle of, there are a lot of puzzle elements to Hearthstone. There's a lot of single player challenges where they give you a specific set of cards and you got to figure out, oh, okay, if I play that card, then I get these cards, and then that levels up this thing, so I can then use that ability. Loves figuring that stuff out because the satisfaction of her figuring it out is like so gratifying. When I solve a puzzle in a game, I'm just like, all right, next. It's not like, oh, that felt so good. But then again, I really enjoyed something like Portal. Portal is one of my favorite games of all time because I think there was just a really good balance between, I'm having fun with this sci-fi thing, and wait a minute. And you're also kind of in the puzzle. I think those are the puzzles that I appreciate, where it's like, just I think through the motions of doing it, you can figure it out. And I like Uncharted, where they, after a while, they'll just be like, it's there. Division does that too, where it's like, got to find a way in here. And then after 5 minutes, they're like, that door. Like, thank you. I think they'll even say over the headset, they'll be like, I have an idea, stupid player. Kith, any tips for dealing with self-doubt of accepting a new job? We all do it. This is not necessarily one of those things of, picture everybody in their underwear, but everybody's got to be at a new job. Everybody's, it's like going to a new school or moving to a new town. It's kind of one of those things where I remember when I did improv one time. I did an improv musical with Amanda, just once. Once was enough. And I remember there was one time where they were talking about me in a scene, and I had a hit. I had an idea, I should go out right now. And then I got stopped by nervousness. And I was standing right like the backstage. The entrance was like right here. And I was like, And I remember almost as if my body had a controller. I was like, and forward. And I just like walked out. Like I had no idea what was going to happen. I remember when I bungee jumped, it was the same thing. It was just like, go. Like everything in my body was like, no, I don't want to do this. And try to see if you can just autopilot. Sometimes when I run marathons or do long distance runs, I like to think of myself like I'm Krang, like I'm really just a brain inside of a machine. And it's just like, I'm not tired. It's just my machine that's operating. And they go, oh yeah, okay. It kind of works sometimes, in fleeting moments. But, it's like, maybe just think about that. Just think about, baby steps, what about Bob? Baby steps to the elevator, baby steps to my cubicle, baby steps to introducing myself to new people. Because when you think about the worst that could happen, it's not that bad. It's just your brain building up these things. And so when you think about, I just said something stupid to my boss, or like, I just introduced myself to those people around the coffee machine, and I must have said a stupid thing. Like, they don't care. Like that stuff's not going to stick with them. Like they're worried about themselves and their own jobs and their own lives and things that are going on. So, you'll be great, Kif. I believe in you. Dan Allen, how are you today, Jones? I'll tell you how I am, Dan. We got a new episode. We got a new Star Wars trailer. There's a trailer right now for a Star Wars movie that has not come out. Mandalorian looks sweet. Star Wars Land is in a month. Endgame is like days away. I have Days Gone downloaded on my PlayStation 4 right now. Dreams comes out tomorrow. Saw the first episode of the final 6 episodes of Game of Thrones last night, and E3 is in 2 months. So yeah, it's. That's how I'm feeling, baby. I'm a little tired, but oh boy, it's exciting. It's a really exciting time to be in this company. It's a really exciting time to be me. No, there's just a lot of exciting things going on, and it really is different from like 2 weeks ago. Like I watched that episode 9 trailer and was like, whoa, what? Wait, what does that mean for the story? And then I was like, I gotta watch this again. And I watched it again, and like when it was done, I was like, I like Star Wars. So I was so surprised. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I didn't think I would be here in terms of like, oh yeah, because I kept thinking of Last Jedi I kept thinking of episode 9 as the sequel to episode 8. And so it's like, okay, well, where are these characters going? What did they set up with all of these surprising curveballs they threw at us with episode 8? And then you watch the trailer for 9 and it's like, oh, right. This is going to be the end of this trilogy. This is going to be the end of 1 through 9. Whoa. And like, I've just been tripping out on that ever since. So I'm stoked. There's a lot going on at Easy Allies, but I'm excited. about those things. Splantot. As an aspiring game developer who has made little to no progress on their game lately due to many different factors, I wanted to get back at some development with something new and small. As someone who has seen nothing for Dreams besides the original trailer from 4 years ago now, I have been sold on it purely from your hype alone. Gulp. I hope you enjoy it, Splantot. As for how this ties into what I was saying before, I was hoping you could give me an idea off the top of your head for a small game to make in Dreams. And to do so, I'd like to steal the way that's done in level creation contests from a YouTuber I watch who plays Super Mario World ROM hacks. So, my request to you is one or both of the following. I will do both. One I'm prepared for, one I am not. A Magic the Gathering... Oh, sorry. 3 separate words to describe a general theme for the level. Example, hidden, forbidden, Holy Land. A Magic the Gathering card, which I will look at the picture, name, effect, and flavor text to see where my mind is led from any number of those. So, okay. 3 words. Fellowship. Darkness. Snakes. And the Magic card, I'm a red deck through and through. Sometimes I go red, green, because I like that foundation, but dueling colors in Magic is not a skill that I possess. But sometimes they'll sell prepackaged decks in multiple colors, and I tend to gravitate toward the red green, the Freddy Krueger colors. But love red, love fast, love damage, go, 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 go. The same thing with Hearthstone, Hunter all the way, damage, damage, damage. Whoop, I lost. Okay, next match, damage, damage, damage. So my Magic card is Blaze, which is where you add X damage to a spell. So it's a 1-cost mana card, 1 red mana, and then an X mana, and then every mana you pay for Blaze does that damage. So if I cast, if I put 10, mana on casting Blaze, that's 9 damage because it's 1 to cast the card, and then the rest is all damage. So there you go. Michael Yao. So the worst case scenario, and yes, I did look up red cards last night. I was like, lightning bolt? No. Michael Yao. So the worst case scenario happened with my visa being denied and not allowing me to move to my job. My question is, what do you do to deal with an adverse situation? There's a lot of people who... A lot of people seeking help in our community. A lot of people who are in a bad way and are scared. It seems like everybody's okay in terms of you can get medical help for your stutter. Hopefully your visa will be approved in the future. Hopefully you will be comfortable at this new job. Meditation across the board for everything. Meditation to help with your stutter. Meditation to help you become cozy with your job. Definitely meditate. That first day before your job. Who asked about that? Kiff. That first day, meditate, bro. Please, come on, do it. I know you're like, that's a good idea, but you won't do it. Do it. Set your timer, 5 minutes. Close your eyes, breathe, get comfortable. It'll help. That's how I deal with an adverse situation. I either run crying to my wife, who solves it for me, or I meditate, or I don't have a 3. That's it. You just have to calm down. Yeah. And whether it's, I actually meditate, just need to approach these things. I think that's like a major, I don't know if I would call it maturity. That seems like a cocky thing to say, but I think that's like a major, difference I've seen in my personality as I've gotten older is like when you get caught up in these moments where you're like, ooh, I could win this argument, or ooh, I could dunk on this guy, or like, oh, I could say something that'll be a really good point. And it's like, and then what? Then what happens after that? So when you fight aggression with aggression, you just get exhausted. And I find that if I can just, okay, wait. Stop doing that, step back. Okay, now I can reassess the situation. And so it's like when I talk about life being a wheel, it's like sometimes you feel like the wheel's going too fast. Sometimes you feel like it's going too slow. To me, an adverse situation is the wheel's going too fast. And so you need to step back on the wheel a little bit, try to center your balance. And you're just not going to do that by being really up close to it. So, that has nothing to do with, a government approving your travel plans. So meditation obviously isn't going to automatically solve that situation, but hopefully it solves your perspective or it eases your anxiety and it helps you give you a clear picture of maybe what you need to do moving forward. Happy gaming. Your idea for a potential 3-part Final Fantasy VI miniseries sounds wonderful and has me thinking about it all week. I have hypothetical questions for you in regards to this dream idea, though. If you and the allies were to play one of the lead characters, who would you cast them as? If you had no limits choice on hiring a director, who would you choose? where would you choose to air the show? Live action or animated? And if animated, what style? Okay, so I got to cast everybody. So let me get out a piece of paper so I can do that. Where would I put it? HBO, obviously. Live action or animated? Live action, I would want to do it animated in general, but because you brought the allies into it, then it's live action because the allies are involved. They'd all have to take acting lessons, including myself, because it's been a while. If you had no limits choice on hiring a director, who would you choose? Me. Not because I think it would be the best, but just selfishly. I mean, I have no limits, so me. And okay, let's cast everybody. Okay, so let me do the age-old challenge of using a pen that doesn't work now. There it is. The fun challenge of trying to remember every single ally. I always forget one. And because Bloodworth is in chat, I will remember Bloodworth, Bosman, Ben, Huber, Brad, Don, Ian, and me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I always forget one. I always forget. It just happens every single time. Oh, Damiani. There we go. I always get to 7, and then I'm like, for a second. Damiani would be Ultros. And myself, I guess. I would be Edgar, of course. And because he is my training buddy, Brad would be Sabin. Let's write that down there. Bloodworth would be what's his name? Bloodworth would be from Doma. Bloodworth would be Cyan. Bossman would be Kefka. Dawn would be Setzer. Writes itself. Ian would be Sellers. Huber and Ben. Okay. Maybe Huber's Locke, I guess. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I know this is very important. I'm dragging the show to look up the characters. Final Fantasy VI. Ben, who are you? Oh, Ben's Shadow. Done. Ben is Shadow. And Huber is... I guess Locke. Locke or Gao. Huber would be... No, Huber's Gao. Done. Or Locke, I guess, if he wants to be Locke. But Huber's Gao would be really fun. And then just like you know, somebody super famous as Locke. How weird. What a weird thing. Okay, moving on. Jason Rumsey. Are you aware of the new FX show Fosse Verdon? I am. I haven't seen it. I'm going to wait until it's done. I'll watch it later. But yeah, I'm stoked. It started this April. I can't recommend it if I haven't seen it, but it sounded like something you might be interested in. Again, Bob Fosse, Gwen Verdon, very famous directors, producers, choreographers on stage and in film. The movie about them with Michelle Williams and Sam Rockwell. Amir Hosni, as Game of Thrones is finally back in full force. I started thinking a lot about television watching and how it has changed in the past few years in the direction of bulk streaming or binging, rather than a weekly drop of episodes, given that Game of Thrones might just be the last ever event-watching television type of a show that you would tune in for on Sunday night, for example. Do you think there is still a space for new mass appeal shows like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad that is not the binge model to break into the TV zeitgeist as it did for these shows? Or does the end of Game of Thrones mark the end of that era as well? No, there's all sorts of stuff. Star Trek, Twilight Zone's back. Barry is appointment viewing for me right now. Last Week Tonight is appointment viewing. Obviously, that show you can't binge that because it covers the shows every week. Saturday Night Live is appointment viewing. Like, I think we're fine. I just think it's something about Game of Thrones. It just kind of is for everybody, you know, like. It's just one of those rare shows when people talk about it, they're like, oh, I'm not watching it. It's like, you would love it. Like, my parents, you would love it. My friend, you know, who's like a book nerd, you would love it. You know, like, it's this fun fantasy world. Like, there are friends that are just like, yeah, I just can't get into it. It's like, the fact that you don't know who Arya Stark is blows my mind. Not you, not everybody, but specific people. You know, I'm like, you would love this character. Like, oh, you would just eat this character's journey up. They don't even read the books. They're just like, not into it. But it just, I think, is very appealing for a lot of people. There's just a lot to love about that show, depending on, you know, like, I love Metallica. Like, you'll love Game of Thrones. Like, I love Lord of the Rings. You'll love Game of Thrones. I love, you know, playing Civilization. You'll love Game of Thrones. You know, it's like, I love history novels. You'll love Game of Thrones. I love boobies. Well, there are boobies in episode 1 of season 8. So, spoilers. They're boobies. So yeah, it doesn't mark the end of an era, but, you know, some shows like Cheers or MASH, you know, like, it's a vacuum when they're gone. You're like, oh, well, what do I watch now? It's like the end of the Truman Show. They watch Truman go away. They're like, oh, anyway, what else is on? Like, we'll all get back to it. Don't worry. Ibrahim Sozer. Can you do the same thing you did for Terminator 2 for the Last Jedi? If you can go 40 minutes for Terminator 2, I would like to see how long Last Jedi hot takes would be. I did. Spoiler mode. Go check it out. Already did it. Done. Not going to do it again. And I would trust those opinions more because they were super fresh. Master Pants. How do you feel? I believe it was Huber and Ian and me. Might have been Ben and Ian. I know Ian was there. Master Pants, how does it feel to have a pretty similar appearance to Cal Kestis in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? Do you agree? I don't agree at all. Do any of you agree that I look like Joker from Gotham? No. I mean, I'll take a look at him again. I looked at him when I'm playing the game. I'll be like, I don't know. Sean Baloo, like the Baron Jungle Book. I just want to start by saying I thoroughly enjoyed the lengthy Star Wars discussion that you, Ben, and Bloodworth had. No. Yeah, everyone's no. No, not even a little. I don't see it. Yes, some people are into it. At least one. I thoroughly enjoyed the lengthy Star Wars discussion that you, Ben, and Bloodworth had on the last Frame Trap. My favorite Star Wars is Return of the Jedi as well. So I must commend you on your favor of it, since it seems like so few of us exist. About 2 years ago, I decided it was time to share the original trilogy with my son, who had only seen episodes of the Clone Wars at that point. I popped in the Blu-ray for each movie over the course of a couple of days, and I found myself disappointed the most in Return of the Jedi. Like a suppressed memory that suddenly came back to me, I remembered why I never watched Jedi from this set. Out of the special editions, in my opinion, Return of the Jedi is the most touched by changes out of all three. Yeah, Return of the Jedi special edition is garbage. It's not good. The extended music number in Jabba's palace, the Sarlacc beak, the blinking Ewoks, and the added "no" as Vader picks up the Emperor, just to name a few. You know what's worse than that is the end of Empire. Episode 4 probably has the best special edition. The end of Empire, when Luke falls and he's like, "Ah!" You're like, why is he screaming? Why? They made it this really brave act on behalf of Luke that he's just like, okay, I either join my father or I die. I choose death. Goodbye. And he just drops. And it was just so... John Williams is like, I got it. I'll cover all this. When he's like falling down the thing. And then you just see Luke and he's helpless, you know, and he's got his hands up. Like, he's just like, I don't know if I'm going to land. I don't know what's going to happen. He just like luckily happens to make it out. And George Lucas is like, you know what we need? We need Pee Wee Herman to come in and do voiceover for Luke Skywalker and be like, ah! It's like, I'm sorry I did that so close to the mic. It's bad. But yeah, special editions. Just, what are you doing? It's my favorite, and yet I have trouble making myself even watch this incarnation due to the circa 1997 CGI that doesn't hold up and other distracting additions. What's your stance on the changes made in special editions? Barf. Barf to all of it. It's not all of the cool stuff that happened, not worth the bad stuff out of the Sarlacc, or not the Sarlacc, the monster on Hoth. What is his name? Anyway, him just like, I don't have an arm. Ah. Taking something that they made intimidating through movie magic, making it unintimidating. Just like they're not banthas. What are those things called? Man, I'm tired. And if you haven't done so already, check out Project 4K83. It's a 4K fan restoration of an original theatrical 35mm print of Return of the Jedi, and it's gorgeous. Not to mention free of the 1997 changes. Wampa, thank you. And they're in Shadow of the Empire. How could I forget? At any rate, thanks for entertaining the small rant. Bonus question: if you were a Jedi, what color would your lightsaber blade be? Green. Yeah, they're terrible. And a fun story about why Lucas can kiss my butt. I've said this before, but AFI, the American Film Institute, approached George Lucas and said, congratulations, we have picked you as the movie of the 70s. Not The Godfather, not The Shining, Star Wars. And he was like, oh, not 2001, Star Wars. Like, Star Wars is going to represent the 1970s at a special event we're going to have at AFI, and we would like to show episode 4. And Lucas was like, cool, here's special edition. And they're like, no, we want to show the movie that came out in 1977 that we're awarding you for. We're giving you an award because we like that movie so much. And Lucas said, special edition or nothing. So they showed special edition. Like, people went to this film festival celebrating movies from the decades, and we're like, what? Why is there CG in this movie? And it's like, Lucas made us show this. Like, we honored him, and he insulted us. It's like, Lucas, man. Oh, boy. Mark Dalga, in the GOT Season 8 prediction video, I noticed that you tend to pronounce the names of characters very differently from what I'm used to, and I'm curious where you got your pronunciations from. The show, probably? You mentioned Amanda was listening to the audiobooks and that you read the books between seasons 1 and 2. Did you pick it up from the audiobook, or is this just a regional accent thing? I'm from Chicago, so maybe it's just a valid pronunciation. Mark, give me one. You gotta just give me at least one example. I don't know. I don't know where I got those from. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. I'm curious what I read wrong. I'm curious if people know a name that I pronounce incorrectly. I don't know. I know one big one is Varys versus Varys. I think it's like Varys. Varys. I don't know. You said some weird ones. Varys. Okay. So is it Varys? Or did I say Varys and didn't say, is it varies and I didn't say that? Does it varies from person to person? Wah, wah. Is it Sansa? Did I say Sansa? Or did I say Sansa? Who knows? Logan Young, I'm going to transcribe a snippet from an IGN interview on YouTube titled Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is not a stealth game. Interviewer, does that mean we are going to see stealth elements, sneaking, or at least laying low from the powers that seem to be a running theme in the game? Game director, you know, I've heard that from a couple of people, and I can understand why, but no, stealth isn't something that we are featuring in the game. I mean, you can jump into a situation and negotiate the battle the way you want, and if you wanted to technically sneak around the AI's attention, I guess that's technically possible. It's not something we are openly encouraging. We want the player to have the power fantasy of having a lightsaber and force powers, and stealth does not really fit into that for this game. I was wondering, does this change your perception or excitement about the game? Yeah, it doesn't change my excitement, but it certainly changes... I mean, Tyrion says Sansa, but that's just his snooty accent. You said Sansa. Okay, Sansa. All right. Daenerys. Oh, Daenerys? I guess Daenerys, is it? It's Daenerys. Okay, and I said Daenerys. All right. Varys, I guess. Okay, cool. All right. I will remember those. When we do the spoiler mode for Game of Thrones, I will commit those to memory. But yeah, dude, even the audiobooks, as much as I love Roy Dotrice, shout out to Roy Dotrice, who will not be reading the audiobooks for 6 and 7 because he is not alive anymore. But Roy Dotrice even pronounces names differently. He does accent. Somebody's like French in book 3 or something. Someone comes back and is like, oh, I'm French. And you're like, wait, what? Because it was a while. It was a gap between those books. Yeah, this sucks. I think one of my... Like, we have a problem with Marvel and we have a problem with Star Wars. And it was my issue. I mean, first of all, I have a problem with when I criticize trailers. A lot of times I talk about trailers and people will be like, so you don't like that game? It's like, no, the game looks great. And they're like, well, you just said you weren't excited. I'm like, I'm not excited because of what the trailer showed me. I think that Iron Man VR game looks great. I think that was a bad trailer to show. And I think it was a weird trailer to show at the time that they showed it. There's just a lot of weirdness surrounding that announcement. But yeah, the game looks cool, and this game looks great. Like, I'm way excited to play a Jedi and whatever story. But like, for them to be like, so Order 66, and it's like, right, Order 66, where they killed all the Jedi, saw it in a film. They teased it in Clone Wars, and we had 3 seasons of Star Wars Rebels, which is all about this. But go on. Oh, that's it. Order 66 happened, and this guy is on the run. Like, oh, cool. Then what happens? Stuff like who like they're Inquisitors. Cool. Did they catch him? I don't know. Like, I need something else. You need to tell me something else about Order 66 in 2019, right before Episode 9, right before we're gonna get a huge series about Mandalorians. You know, it's like you can't just say Order 66 and then mic drop. You got what is happening? You know, and so they're like, well, he's working on this planet and he's like got his hood up a lot and he's like being sneaky. It's like, cool, there are stealth elements? No. Like, all right. Like this moment that you're showing in the trailer where he reaches out and tries to grab somebody and then maybe decides to let them die. Are there moments like that? No. Like, cool. Well, then I'm glad you put it in the trailer. Like, it's weird. It's this weird assumption over what we're going to be excited to become a Jedi. Like, what? I've become a Jedi 40 times in games. And that's not an exaggeration. 40. I've become various Jedis. I've created my own Jedi. Can I create my own Jedi in this game? No. Well, I've done that 4 times. I did that in a Jedi Outcast game. I did that in 2 separate online RPGs for Star Wars. Come on. Just this idea of like, lightsabers are cool. The ending where he's like, and turns the lightsaber on. It's like, no, someone turning on a lightsaber is not the end of a trailer. It's just not. Like, I'm sorry. So my excitement of Jedi Fallen Order is over here and is pulsating with bright energy and joy. My excitement over the trailer that they showed, nah, not a lot. But we'll see. I also miss Galaxies. Oh, and we're done. That's it. Maybe I can do more of a rant on that. But yeah, we're finished. My takeaways, bonus round of Mysterious Monsters, just for the winner, maybe. Check out Pathway on Steam, even though it doesn't look like my cup of tea. But if I have time, I will check it out. Always consider possibly doing a community suggestion box or some kind of a community process of suggestions. And consider making the first exclusive show of exclusive shows given to the public. One thing that's nice about that is... and for that reason, and First Fantasy 15 still hold up. Like, if you have not seen them, hopefully you've seen them. You are $1, patrons of Easy Allies if you're watching Cup of Jones. And so if you have not checked out exclusive shows, go check them out. We did 2 of them. We have another one coming up. And so we can make that first episode exclusive anytime we want. I think that would still be cool, and anytime in 2019. And as I mentioned, I think we are due for some kind of Patreon initiative. Bloodworth and I were actually talking about this the other day. Blood had some fun ideas about ways we can incentivize people. And it's not really just about incentivizing. It's reminding people, knock, knock, knock. Hi, Easy Allies. Remember us? Going door to door and being like, have you considered about being a patron of Easy Allies today? And so it's time to do that. And that could be a tool that we could use. I have one final fun surprise. Before we wrap up, I have something that I'm going to show you. I'm going to take off. Thank you so much. Cheers, everybody, for hanging out with me for 3+ hours. But I have a fun little thing, thanks to Daniel Bloodworth. Diddly-doo, diddly-doo. We're going to go back in time to the days of game trailers. And I mentioned last week that I was sad that I couldn't find my episode of Backtrack. That was on Batman Returns, where I talked about how awesome music in Batman Returns for the Super Nintendo is. And Bloodworth's like, I got your back, Jones. I got those episodes. And this might not be prudent. This might not be technically legal, showing game trailers content here on patreon.com/easyallies. But it's only like an 8-minute episode. And I'm rather proud of it. I went back and watched it, and it's fun to go back and revisit stuff from GT and be like, that's a good script. Like, it's not bad. But again, I didn't want to put it on a Patreon. I don't want to, just don't tell anybody we did this, okay? This is just going to be between you and me, not you. You stop watching. You're not allowed to watch this, but you. It's just between me. Don't get IGN on the phone and be like, hey, they're pumping out. I gave them $1 and they gave me game trailers content. This is just between you and me. It's just because something I'm proud of. And I just shout out to Daniel Bloodworth, who did a good job backing this up. And I just want you to check it out. So cheers, everybody. Thank you for thank you for continuing these important conversations that need to be had, even though it's not every week that we get to just drop fun new announcements and updates to the Patreon or our office or our content. But happy to be available and chat about these things. I'm going to go see if I can buy some Move controllers and play some Days Gone. Cheers, everybody. Enjoy the video.
In the early 1990s, the Super Nintendo played host to a lot of cheesy movie ports. The experiences almost never lived up to their cinematic counterparts, and most certainly didn't sound like them. There was little to no point in licensing film scores for Cliffhanger, Last Action Hero, or The Lawnmower Man, when the music wasn't that memorable to begin with. Batman Returns, released in 1993, was one of the few exceptions.
The original film soundtrack was composed by the brilliant and bizarre Danny Elfman, the frontman for Oingo Boingo, singing voice of Jack Skellington, and writer of a trove of heroic film scores. With his tracks tied so closely to the film's aesthetic, the score was reproduced for the side-scrolling beat-em-up that appeared on the Super Nintendo, similar to the Super Star Wars series. The Genesis was known for having subpar audio quality compared to the SNES, and while the Sega CD was crisper than Nintendo's 8-channel, 16-bit machine, neither version licensed any of the official music from the film. The creative reimagining of Elfman's work was best experienced on the SNES. It's one of the most faithful and extensive musical adaptations of the era. With three big characters sharing the screen, the Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin, Elfman made sure each had their own distinct sound, and a handful of these tracks made it into the game. The opening cinematic introduces the Penguin's theme that represents his longing to find a family and a home. Catwoman's theme slips in after she blows up Shrek's department store. Our hero's triumphant fanfare is, of course, rampant throughout, but is given special attention when Bruce Wayne is called back to duty to save Gotham from rampaging clowns. Given that the game had much more punching and kicking than the film, several tracks were created to cover levels and brawls previously unseen. These extras were composed by Jun Funahashi, who had previously worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Castlevania III on the NES, Harume Ueko, a jazz fusion artist who started the Guitar Freaks arcade series, and Kazuhiko Uehara, who wrote the music for Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. The new tracks do incorporate themes from the three central characters in parts, and they play around with Elfmanisms like his trademark slides with wind instruments. The few tracks from the film that play during normal combat were cut into shorter, loopable segments that blend naturally with the custom 16-bit compositions. Sparsely animated cutscenes tell the story as quickly as possible and feature the majority of the game's direct translations of the film. These chapter markers help root the game into the style of the film visually and musically, and this kind of musical fan service was uncommon on the SNES, or any system of the time other than the PC. Although it takes less time to play through the SNES version of Batman Returns than it does to actually watch the movie, it's an admirable achievement in video game music. Composers were already faced with a challenge creating scores with only 8 tracks and limited range, never mind having to translate someone's already celebrated work into something that can never measure up. The spooky wails of that boys' choir that seems to follow Elfman wherever he goes were too complex to simulate on the Super Nintendo, but Konami made the tracks ominous enough without them. Nowadays, if a film-to-game crossover needs music, it might end up paying more for legal fees than a composer or sound editor's salary. In 1993, few musicians bothered to take the time to reassemble someone else's work into a digital, interactive form. Console movie games have certainly moved on from these tricks and loops from years past, but maybe more movie adaptations could learn a thing or two from Konami and The Dark Knight.